Aviv, there are a lot of interceptor, missile, audio, etc. that can be heard, sound, because of the interceptions that are taking place. Air raid sirens are now blaring in Kuwait, after Kuwait is also seeing possibly a fresh wave of these drone or projectile missile attacks. By any account, Iran cannot keep this up for too long. As far as we know. So this is going to be possibly a last-ditch effort, and I think by what our experts have pointed out, the harakiri that they've committed by attacking all of these Gulf countries.
I'm going to show you what is being targeted now. We're going to get the over the shoulder camera very soon onto this map, and if you just have a look, Shivani, these are some of the areas, and we're just going to get the OTS here. These are some of the areas, and this is a map that has been put out by Iranian state media, which is being reported by the Wall Street Journal staff report. So this is a graphic which we will just put out there. You can see the Erbil Air Base, which is in Iraq, Tel Aviv. You have the Ali Al Salam Air Base in Kuwait. The US 5th Fleet is here in Bahrain. You have in Riyadh, you have strikes there apparently. Al Udeid Air Base, which is Qatar. And then you have the Al Dhafra Air Base in UAE. So let's have a look. Let's come in. Let's come into the frame. Let's go into this and let's hang on to this and show these are the areas that we are talking about. Viewers, this is what I want us to focus on. Director Saab, can you please cut to this camera here? Wonderful. There you can see it. Now, if we can just get the resolution a little better on this, you can see the Erbil Air Base, which is in Iraq. That's Iran there. That's Tehran. It's pretty much on the same latitude. So it overlooks the territory of Iran. And this is, of course, you're looking at Western Iran. Here is the Ali Al Salam Air Base. If you can zoom in more, sir. There it is. There it is. And that's Kuwait, just opposite that strait. There's Bahrain, the US 5th Fleet, and there's Qatar, the Al Udeid Air Base, and there's Dubai. So this map we're just going to put out for you, viewers, on the screen to give you a sense of the geography that is right now facing the strafe from Iran. And that is something that, viewers, we're going to be keeping an eye on. That's what we're going to be keeping an eye on. And these are the areas. These are the areas that are being harried right now by the Iranians. Now, whether this will lead to the Americans and the Israelis pulling back or not, we don't know. But clearly, as of now, they are trying to, at some level or the other, saturate the airspace over these areas, maybe because they are trying to distract General Pandey. The larger weapon systems, the radars of the United States and Israel, maybe they're going to conduct something bigger. Is that possible?
Yes. During Lion Royce, one very major lesson which Israel drew, and possibly that led to a certain degree of de-escalation, was Israel's entire air defense systems were actually they fired the best systems quite early on. And that is why, if you recall, in the later stages, the Iranians were able to breach the air defense systems of Israelis and land quite fatal strikes. And this time, I think that is why they have gone for one simple calculation, that they will firstly surge the production and ensure their missiles are the same. And now they will be only targeting the ones which are relevant, which are going to strike high-value targets. So this is a change in possibly a strategy which Israel has taken. They need to conserve, because in last about 7-8 months, Iranians knew that they are going to face this war, come what may, because talks or no talks, they were quite fully prepared. They didn't want to change their strategic orientation, and Americans were going to come after them. And therefore, they have done well enough for themselves. Actually, just because they have taken out Khamenei and the top leadership of this thing, the regime has not changed. The response are going to continue, and this is not going to end very well for either of them as of now.
Well, let me also tell you that there are some releases that are now being put out by the MEA. So we're going to try and go out to those. We're trying to get connectivity here in the studio so I can open that link up. But I'm just trying to go straight in, because there are updates coming in, advisories mostly, Shivani, that are being put out there by the Indian government, telling various people that part of the diaspora, huge diaspora, isn't there, in the Gulf?
Yes.
Millions.
Huge diaspora,
Millions
of Indians,
90
especially in these geographies that we are looking at right now.
Are there.
90 lakhs, which means 9 million.
9 million there, and they are all across. And the
All
point
across
is,
these countries,
all
from Kuwait
across.
to
And also
Saudi
remember
Arabia,
another
UAE.
thing, the oil which is coming from this area is about 40%. Now if Strait of Hormuz is blocked, the India is also going to be hit very hard. Not only that, the rates of oil will also go more than $100 per barrel. So there are challenges as far as we are also concerned. What happened to Chabar port? You know, the one which we are operating, that will also be now a question mark. So there are a number of issues which will happen due to, if
Actually,
this
the
war
issue of
prolongs.
oil is very interesting because what happens to everything that has been going on in context of the tariffs and the Russian oil, given what has now transpired and what with the Strait of Hormuz.
So I have to,
being closed.
I have to ask this question now. It was passed off as a preemptive strike, General Saab. This is not a preemptive strike. This is some sort of an offensive strike. This was a strike that left no options open for diplomacy, General Pandey, because I don't see, even after the transition that we've been talking about, this three-member council that has been set up, led by the grandson of the Grand Ayatollah, the founder of this Islamic regime, and so on and so forth, Muhammad
Mojtaba
Khamenei. There seems to be no lifting of the foot off the gas. These Iranians are pretty set on continuing.
So please understand, let me just give a context how the strikes have happened. And if I understand, and I have read enough about the Israelis and Americans, and that is how a powerful or intelligent nation should operate. This whole talks, schmozzle, gossip or facade or charade was ongoing to find the right time, right opportunity to strike, right? So while the 10 days talk were ongoing, they struck on the 9th day where some degree of everybody was saying that possibly, and a lot of people are commenting adversely. But I look at it, it was an entire charade in which they wanted to get, when they get an opportunity, when entire leadership is together. Yesterday, the first strike went at the time of 8:15. It was in the morning. Generally, the strikes happen in the night. They went through at 8:15, in which they got entire top leadership of Iranians. So I think they were pretty committed.
Committed. On that point, Iranian parliamentary speaker has come out, prepared ourselves for all scenarios. As I said, viewers, the Iranians are not taking a step back. We are prepared for all scenarios, which could even mean a ground invasion, which could mean anything.
They're saying that plans have already been put in place, were already in place for a post-Khamenei phase.
Well,
so they, of course, were anticipating.
They were, and they probably, they led him to believe they were so well prepared that he walked into the path of direct fire. In the first strike, he was taken out. But look, viewers, clearly regime change is the objective here, because had that not been, in the first wave, they would not have taken out Khamenei. They would have maybe dropped things around him, softened him up a little bit and said, okay, come to the table, agree to all our terms, open up your country, maybe even step aside. But they haven't. They've actually taken him out.
You know, the problem is that when US is talking about regime change, there is not possibility of regime change until there are ground troops which go there. Yeah. Boots on ground is very important. Now when you have such a head, there can be regime collapse. Someone else will take on. There is a succession plan. So thinking that the government which will come.
You might carry out a decapitation strike in the hope that others who are more amenable to you. I'm not saying in the classical sense that you are there to guide a process like you were in Iraq. But General Pandey, this is a political choice. I'm just talking about not a military choice. This is a political choice. This is a political attack which has been given the gleam of something bigger.
You know,
a preventive strike, that is.
So as Jan Schwartz said, that regime change doesn't change with change of a spiritual leader or the top leader being taken out. There is a whole structure, there is a whole system which is in place. But what has also happened is, what we are not recognizing is, there is a certain degree of corruption, there is a certain degree of divide which is there already in the country. The people who were supporting the religion, the people with money, the businessmen, business community is not with the regime. While the force power of IRGC continues to remain in the hands of the regime, but yet there is a significant population which is today not with the regime, because after all, they are seeing all this progress and process all across the world, and they were quite unhappy with the falling economy, falling the prices of real and stuff like that. So I think please understand, the Americans have gone inside. They will have a plan. If the plan was to leave the region into chaos, there has to be a strategic outcome out of it, which you can debate and talk about later.
Yeah.
But today I think the regime still continues to be in place, but I
For
think
how
there's a
long?
fracture inside which will ensure
But
that.
can I just say that there are two moral standpoints from which Donald Trump has justified these strikes, quote unquote preemptive strikes that Rahul was talking about. One is he said this was protecting American lives because he has told his domestic constituency at least that Iran was planning weapons against USA,
Okay.
whether those are missiles or nuclear weapons, etc. The second moral standpoint that
Here it
Donald
is,
Trump
US
has
Embassy.
provided-
US Embassy, this is in Baghdad that seems to have been attacked. This is pictures coming out from Baghdad on the ground. This is what we are being told. This is a handle called Naya for Iraq that has put it out. You can see bulldozers. There is a overrunning of the US facility there. These are big pictures, dramatic pictures, sympathizers. Perhaps these might even be Shias, I don't know. But there is clearly an attempt to overrun the US Embassy. Now, I do believe that some of the US personnel had been evacuated from Iraq a few days ago, but I'm not sure if that was possible. What is going on here? Clearly US assets here in the Middle East under attack. And is it possible, General Pandey, that we might see this being replicated in other parts of the Gulf? At least in 2 or 3, it may not. Maybe not in Saudi Arabia, may not be in Dubai, but other areas.
No, it will happen in Dubai, it will happen everywhere, right? We have not even seen 24 hours have not passed. Actually, barely 24 hours have been passed. You will start seeing proxy elements coming out in support who are hardline. You have taken out the most important person of the Shia community, and that is the Ayatollah, right? Everybody prays to him, everybody looks at him. There will be fringe elements, not fringe elements, there will be organized elements who will carry out, if not symbolic, if not proper attacks, surely symbolic attacks, which will happen. And I think in anticipation, if you recall about 2 months or 3 months back, the entire Iraq base where 25,000 troops were positioned were taken out, right? So they have diminished, they have reduced the footprint of US presence all over the Gulf to ensure that they don't get hit when such a situation comes up. So these are all indicators towards what is going to happen eventually. And I'm sure they have got enough capacities. Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis and other Shia terrorist groups have got capacity to carry out strike. How effective they will be, it is only the time will tell. But yes, there are going to be collaterals which are going to happen, not only to US citizens, but also to the Gulf entities and other countries in the region.
The another point is, as far as wherever there is a more Shia population, why it is happening in Iraq? Iran has about 55 to 60% Shia population. For Shia population, Ayatollah al-Khamenei was a religious and supreme leader. So wherever it is a Shia population, you will find such sort of action taking place by these certain proxy groups. And how much they will be affected, time will only tell. It can start in Syria also. It has started now in Iraq. But I think in Sunni dominated countries like Saudi, UAE, Oman, Bahrain, there the chances of such thing happening are very, very less compared to where there is a more population of Shia.
Yeah. The visuals, of course, speak for themselves here, Rahul. As far as that US base in Iraq is concerned, there is this Iraqi resistance, that we've mentioned earlier as well, that was trying to, of course, get into this conflict. It is a Shia-backed Iraqi resistance, isn't it? Backed by the
I'm trying
regime.
to get hold of voices now. We need to connect to people in Bahrain, in the UAE. Lots of Indians living there. I want to find out really what's happening. What are they perceiving on the ground? Are they safe? Are they not safe? Let's get that connection going. But here it is, viewers. Dramatic visuals now coming in from the center of Baghdad, the US Embassy there. We're going to try and pull out a map and show you where the US Embassy is exactly in Baghdad in just a few moments. But these are visuals, dramatic scenes. This is the beginning of a pushback at a popular citizen level. I don't know if these are ordinary citizens or if this is the resistance, if these are people, but certainly they don't look like militia. They could be plain clothes, I don't know, but they certainly don't look like militia. these are people who've taken JCBs and they're trying to overrun a facility there. Whether there are people inside or not, we don't know.
But
Thousands and thousands of
there are
people.
being heard.
There are explosions. There are all sorts of things
possibly
happening.
Gunshots being heard here.
Yeah, so we don't know if this is just a part of an exercise to overwhelm and show others and rouse others around the Gulf that, look, this is what we need to be doing. We are being overrun by Americans. We are being overrun by the so-called Zionists. So there is all of this. And there is also a new warning that has come out from Trump. US President Trump says we'll hit Iran with a force that has never been seen before. Let's go straight across to Siddhant. Siddhant, what can you tell us?
Well, that's right, Rahul. So it's a message from President Trump, because there have been several warnings coming from Iran. In fact, Iran is threatening countries in West Asia of retaliatory strikes, and the warnings came from IRGC and several other high-ranking officials from Iran. And now this is the response coming from President Trump. President Trump writes on Truth Social that if they do, we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. So it's the first response coming from President Trump after Iran threatening of retaliatory strikes on the countries in the West Asia and the US assets in the region.
So what exactly is the statement saying? Can you read out this statement to us for the benefit of our viewers?
Yes, that's right. So Rahul, President Trump writes on Truth Social that Iran just started, that they are going to hit very hard today, harder than they ever hit before. They better do not do that. However, because if they do, we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump.
So
first response coming from President Trump.
Okay, so why is Trump now suddenly sending out this message? Because earlier he was saying, just about 1 hour back, I think, and let's just bring out those two messages and put them side by side. 1 hour back, he says, it's over. We've softened these people up.
He said it's going to be easier to
It's
now
going
talk
to be
to
easier.
the Iranians.
Now he's
or
suddenly
negotiate with
using
them.
a threatening tone. So is he coercing General Pandey, or is he suddenly realizing that this is now taking a nasty edge? Maybe they've underestimated.
I'm quite sure they know that it is going to take a nasty turn. But these are all public posturing. So Iranian foreign minister, the parliamentary minister, the new leadership is going to talk about how they are going to hit back and strike back. And that means they are under control, the regime change is taking place, the new leadership is coming. And similarly on the other side, the Americans and the Israelis are going to talk about differently that in case you retaliate, we are going to come after you. This is all posturing to ensure that everybody comes up, somebody has to cede the ground. Actually, and the first statement which came out was by Trump regarding they have been softened up and there is a scope for talk now to reach out. These are all addressing two segments of population. One segment of population is in Iran, which wants the change of regime, and therefore they need to talk, and we should not go ahead with continued retaliation and stuff like that. Right now, please understand that while the Shia groups will come out onto the streets and carry out certain degree of strikes, but there is an element which Americans control and they are not talked of very often, and that is ISIS.
So let me,
right.
ISIS.
When ISIS is going to be unleashed against the Shia community,
wow,
that is the time when.
No, but then what you're suggesting is a full-blown regional conflict that could then take years.
Yeah, that's true.
It could release gyms we don't want to be released.
Correct. So that is why all these people, especially the Iranians, need to actually understand that which is the path they need to take, because US has got not only one strategic domain to look at.
And on the other side, you have Iran that is threatening Israel, saying you have crossed the Rubicon, you've crossed our red lines, you're going to have to pay for it. Let's just quickly go across to Siddhant and also Ashok Sajjanar, who joins us, a noted diplomat. First, Siddhant, over to you.
Well, that's right. So there are two responses that we have from President Trump, Rahul. One, which he wrote on Truth Social this morning, where he confirmed that Khamenei is over. He is dead, and in fact, he says that now they can have immunity. Later, they only get death. Hopefully, the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country in the greatness it deserves. So this is what President Trump wrote this morning. Now he has come up with a warning. In fact, he is threatening Iran that if Iran, IRGC and the forces decides to attack US interests, the countries in West Asia, then he is now threatening that because if they do, we will hit them with force, and that has never been seen before. So this is the second response coming from President Trump. In the morning, he said that everything is over, everything is done. Now, the forces, IRGC, etc., should support the Iranian patriots and join them. Now he's saying, because there have been multiple, warnings coming from the IRGC and the other senior officials in Iran of retaliation, of attacking U.S. interest in the region. So now Trump has issued a warning saying that if they will do this, then we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before.
But on the other side, the Iranian parliamentary speaker Rahul is saying that the time for final revenge has come. So the tone and tenor in Iran has certainly not gone down any notches. If that is what the American president was expecting, maybe what he said earlier to CBS News about that it will become much easier to negotiate or talk to the Iranians was also giving them a hint that if you tone it down, it will be easier for you.
Meanwhile,
but that's not happening.
Meanwhile, I'm going to show you now visuals. So Lucknow, Srinagar and Kargil now, viewers, Shia as well as other sympathizers of the Iranian regime are out on the streets protesting, and they are protesting loudly because they believe that their spiritual leader is no more. Viewers, this is pan-Islamism of a kind that is completely out of sync with India's secular ethos. The people that they are celebrating are not individuals who in any way represent the ideals of our constitution. So this is a disconnect, viewers, which I feel should not be tolerated. These protests should be actually controlled, shut down, because the last thing we want is a restive population here that is trying to milk this for political gain and create instability in our country. This should be stopped. This should be post-haste put an end to. All of these are pictures now coming from different centers. So you have Kargil, you have Srinagar, you have Lucknow, you have all these centers. General Pandey, what is going on? This is ridiculous. These people
These are men and
who are
women
out
wailing with the pictures
the women
of the...
who are wailing here are the same women who in Iran were butchered, massacred for standing up for basic rights. What is going on?
So, Rahul, you are handing me the so-called hot potato to answer.
No, we must
question.
take it
but
on
to be
as
candid,
as
what has
patriots.
happened is that there are communities within India. It's not only the Shias, but many communities in India who draw their ideological moorings, not only ideological moorings, but political moorings from across the world and not from our civilizational history. This has been allowed to be nurtured for political gains for last about 70 to 80 years in our country, and suddenly for the present government to change that line of thinking is impossible. So I guess it is sporadic. It will blow out.
Okay.
It should be allowed to be released rather than getting contained.
Okay, so you
installed.
believe let them let off their steam. Okay, viewers, I want to bring in Ashok Sajjanhar. Thank you. Good morning, sir. Thank you for being so patient with us. It's been a crazy last 24 hours to be very honest with you. No one thought we would get up at 3 in the morning. I was woken up at 3 in the morning to be told there's been a decapitation strike on Khamenei. Was this really a preemptive strike then? Mr. Sajjanhar, this doesn't look like a preventive strike to me. This looked like something greater.
Thank you very much, Rahul, for having me. I compliment you that you've been up since 3 o'clock, but still, your levels of energy and enthusiasm continue to be as strong as ever. So my compliments to you. Definitely not. It was not a preemptive strike. It was an all-out war. It was an all-out conflict. I think the preemptive strike of any nature would have happened last year in June when the 12-day war took place. This was, after Bibi Netanyahu visited Washington, D.C. and he had conversations with Donald Trump. Both of them decided what the plan of action was going to be, how they are going to do it in concert. If you permit, I'll just make 2 more points. Number one is, there are 3 segments who will definitely rise up wherever they are against the action that has been taken by Israel and the United States, particularly in terms of taking out Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Number one is, of course, the Shiite population, the Islamic population, as far as, those who are extremist Islamic in Iran. They will, of course, continue to oppose whatever is being done by US and Israel, because it is an existential threat as far as their own survival and their own continuity is concerned, because they have invested, they are identified so very closely with the regime that was being led by Khamenei. Second thing, as far as the Shiites are concerned, the world over, you talked about India, we've spoken about, in Iraq, there is a very large, around Basra, at the estuary of Tigris and Euphrates, there is a huge population of Shiites. And that is why you remember even in the Iran-Iraq war that took place from 1979, etc., there was a lot of support for Iran, even from those sections of Iraq. So wherever they are, whether it is in Iraq or they are in Bahrain, mind you, there is a significant population of Shiites in Bahrain also. So they will definitely rise up because their supreme leader has been taken out. The third element is the elements of the axis of resistance that have been there, that have been set up by by Iran, whether it is in the Houthis, whether it is the Hamas, whether it is the Hezbollah, or it is in elements of Syria, in Iraq, they will also rise up. So I think we should be quite prepared for that. I'm sure Israel and the United States would have been quite prepared for that, and they will deal with it appropriately. These are sort of, just the changes that are taking place. Now, what Mr. Trump might have expected, that his exhortation to the people in Iran to rise up, but they need a leader who they can come behind, but there is no leader. So that is why if you have no plan for the day after, the situation is bound to be messy. And this is what I had mentioned on your channel yesterday, that this is what we can expect. There is going to be very messy things happening in Iran. Rahul.
So viewers, we have a situation now where this is beginning to spread further afield. Now, we're also being told that there are air raid sirens as we speak being sounded in Tel Aviv, and clearly there is a pushback also happening. So we are not only seeing attacks in the UAE and in other geographies of the Gulf, specifically in Doha, etc., but we're also seeing a pushback by Iran over Tel Aviv. And air raid sirens, you can beginning to hear them. Friends, you can hear them in the background. Those are being sounded across Tel Aviv. And we just were speaking with George a few minutes back, whose daughters are in Tel Aviv, and they are still in the bunkers. They are right down there. Sanjay Suri, our man in Tel Aviv, is also in a bunker. We're going to be connecting with him very soon, in another 20 minutes or so, when things become a little calmer there. Right now, all communications cut off. But these are the pictures that we're getting from different parts of the Gulf. And Tom Cooper is here with us. Adrian Fontanellas is here with us. Both of them are military historians, experts. They know this game inside out. So, Tom, what are we seeing? Why are we seeing these geographies being struck? I mean, look at these. These are drone attacks, we're being told. They're causing a bit of damage. Is this psychological damage more than physical damage, or is it both? And why are these areas being targeted?
What we actually see is just a little bit of what is going on. We see perhaps one or two drones here and there, but actually there are dozens of drones. We see perhaps one or two missiles coming down, well, actually there are dozens of missiles, but many are shot down before they reach their targets. So what Iran is doing is precisely what Iran was planning to do all the time, in the case that it finds itself at the end, at the receiving end of such an attack like these days. It means for Iranian leadership, all the red lines have been crossed, which is granting Iran the right to strike back with all means at its hands. And this is primarily missiles and UAVs. Therefore, it's now striking on all the countries housing US bases within its reach. It was working, for example, even on a missile to strike Diego Garcia. It hasn't got such a missile, therefore it's striking over shorter ranges. And what is easier to hit for Iran, but US bases or countries housing US military forces, within the Persian Gulf, for example, and the Gulf of Oman.
So let's have a look at the map here. I'm not an expert at this, but just have a look at this. This is where Iran is, Adrian and General Pandey. Both have a look. This is the Gulf we're talking about. This is the Strait of Hormuz. At some points, it's only 20 miles wide. It's shallow also at some points. It's the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. All of this has been, according to reports that have come in, blocked off by Iran. And over VHS, they announced VHF frequency. They announced to everybody to keep clear. No ships are coming in and out. Yet Iran is being able to target some of these bases which are in these areas, the US bases. How can they be doing this when it is presumed that the US bases would be well guarded?
It is an excellent question. I can explain it very easily. Can we zoom in?
Yes, we can zoom in. I think I don't know how to operate this very well. I'm not somebody who
it's not happening. Okay, it doesn't matter. Let's do it this way.
Yeah.
If we pay attention at the Iranian geography, there are tall mountain chains, for example, along the coast, which means that the Iranians can hide their missiles behind these mountains from the view of the Americans, of the Israelis. Which means, in turn, in order to find them, the Americans have to send UAVs over Iran, which are then shot down by Iranian air defenses. And there are already reports about shooting down several UAVs.
So you're saying that these guys here, the Americans will send UAVs across here to find out where some of the offensive capabilities of Iran are.
Exactly.
Right.
On the other hand, the Persian Gulf is so narrow that when you are flying along this side, let's say at 10 or 12,000 meters, you can see all of Iran on the other side and the other way around. So whoever is flying, there are also Iranian UAVs operating over the Persian Gulf, sees what is going on the other side. So it's easy to target each other for both of them. The question is, how long can Iranians hide their missiles or missile launchers and continue striking, continue firing them at targets of their preference?
So what we've done also, and we're going to pull out those maps and we're going to project them. And Adrian, I want your view on this. We're going to put out that map of where Iran has been targeting these Gulf nations. We're going to put that map out in just a few moments. The director is going to do that. These are the pictures now coming out of Bahrain and so on and so forth. And there it is. Adrian, what are we seeing here? Why are countries like Qatar, Kuwait, and of course Israel is back here, so it's obviously being hit, and this is we're talking about Iraq and Syria, so these are geographies that are being crossed. How is all of this happening when you would expect the US fleet, which is somewhere off the coast of
here,
there, as well as
the Eastern Mediterranean,
and Eastern Mediterranean, not being able to intercept all of this?
Okay. So I would expect it to be, to me, a matter of size of salvos fired by the Iranian. Since yesterday, because it is important to make a distinction as Iranians have a limited stock of middle-range missiles which are able to reach Israel and Jordania. And this base used by the US Air Force in Jordania, and it's looking like since yesterday that the Iranians are firing continuous salvos or a limited number of ballistic missiles, but all the time, probably in order to force the Israeli and American to expand their long-range anti-ballistic missiles interceptors. And now we are seeing that some of the Iranian missiles are coming through, striking Israel, and there was some impact in this airbase in Jordania too. So this is for the long range. And for the short range attacks, that is against the US bases in Bahrain, Qatar, the Emirates, then it is, I guess, my impression, it is quite important saturation attacks. The Emirati said that yesterday alone, at least 136 ballistic missiles as well as 200 UAVs targeted them. And they spoke only about the Emirates. So we had to have had Qatar, Kuwait, which were probably on the receiving hand hundreds more of
Okay,
such.
you wanted to make a
munitions.
point there. You wanted to add
Yes,
to what
he
he was
has
saying.
pointed
Yeah.
out 200 missiles just on United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
So you have to count additional against Qatar, against Bahrain, against Kuwait. And these are short-range missiles. I said they are fired from southern Iran, from along the coast, probably from... It's relatively easy to dig a hole, hide the launcher inside that hole, inside the mountainside, pull it out, fire the missile and hide it into the hole, move it back into the hole again. This is what they are doing right now. The Americans, in turn, are trying, their primary strike yesterday was to hit the IGC bases, to command nodes, communication
So
systems.
we should open out the map
all
on
over the
Iran
country.
in just a few moments. We'll show you the locations
Yes.
where in Iran that have been struck, and you can talk a little bit about the significance of those locations. Viewers, we're talking at a time when the Iranians have launched a sixth wave of attacks. And they're saying that these attacks are beginning to target sites in this part of the Gulf, which is the UAE and Oman. And you have Trump coming out, who has said that, look, don't mess with us. This is going to get a whole lot worse for you. On the other side, the Iranians are saying we haven't even begun. We're going to take you down. So you have a battle of wills right now. We also know that Khamenei, the Ayatollah, has been eliminated. There's a decapitation strike. Now let's focus on this. Let's get close on this. Tom, these are some of the sites that have been attacked by the US and Israelis. So why would Tabriz and Qom be attacked? What is the idea?
Qom is the holy city. This is the center of the Iranian or Shia clergy. That is one of the reasons. The other reason is that there are also missile cities next to it, missile garrisons. Kermanshah is one of the major military bases in western Iran on the border to Iraq. Tabriz is the primary military base in northwestern Iran. So these are all centers of
So it's a primary
IGC's
military
capabilities.
Right.
That means they have their bases over there, they have nearby their missile garrisons, they have other stockpiles of their weaponry and so on and so on. And foremost, don't forget, command nodes and communication nodes. So the Americans are trying to disable the IGC capability to communicate. Why? Because if, for example, Tehran cannot communicate with Kermanshah, they cannot coordinate their operations. They do not know what is going on. They cannot redeploy their troops, for example, in the case that there is protesting. So the Americans are trying to disable this ability of the regime to react. The same for Tabriz, for Esfahan, for Natanz. Natanz is also one of centers of Iranian nuclear program.
An enrichment facility.
Yes. And of course, big concentration of air defense systems are in this area. So this is all I said. Again, the Americans are trying to disable the regime's capability to communicate with its nodes, with its local commands. Why? Because the better they communicate, the better coordinate they are. The better coordinate are their strikes against Israel and against US bases
So I
in
want to
the
ask
Persian
you,
Gulf.
what is here then? This area looks like it's not been targeted too much. What is here exactly?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest surprises actually. For example, Bandar Abbas here in the Straits of Hormuz
Yes.
is one of major military bases of Iran, but we don't hear anything about it. Shabaha here in the south is the biggest, well, incomplete, but one of the biggest ports in Iran.
Yeah, and that
one
port
of
is
the biggest
important for
military
Indian
bases.
strategic interests because
Yes.
just here is Gwadar, which
Yes,
is also, of course,
Pakistan.
hypothecated to China and Pakistan. So
Yes.
that Gwadar and Chabahar were very important strategically.
Yeah.
But here, unfortunately, we have not heard about much action.
Nothing at all. That is what is surprising me. Also, there are no reports about any kind of US or Israelis cannot reach this far.
You were
Forward.
talking about Kermanshah. I want to go straight across to footage that is just coming in. Military base in Kermanshah. Look at these pictures. What is happening here? How are we seeing these massive clouds? I haven't seen this. This is obviously
This
taken
is-
from a car.
This is black clouds. This means the fuel is burning.
Right.
Essentially. So that means that Israelis probably in this case have targeted the local fuel depots
Fuel
in order
depots.
to immobilize the IGC.
So what kind of munitions would have been held here? This fuel is required for what?
Fuel is primarily required for the IGC mobility. That means they're striking the base of whether this is the IGC in Kermanshah or the Iranian army has a big army base, helicopter base. So they are striking. I don't.
Yeah, we can't make out
recognize
because
from
those
this.
pictures, as you can see
Yeah.
on the screen, you can see the big pillars
Yep.
of black smoke. So
Smoke.
clearly you're saying that it's a fuel dump.
Yep.
There are also
And that
other...
behind that could be, for example, could
Yes.
be one of the military facilities and something else was hit. But primarily, the point is this: this is Western Iran. This is easy to reach for the Israelis. So here they are using, because you have asked about ammunitions, they are using free-fall GPS-guided bombs in this area.
Okay, so GPS-guided bombs. General
Yes.
sir.
When you showed that map and you looked at why there is no strike here, please understand the entire oil concentration is in the south-southwest of the region where no strike has taken place.
Khuzestan.
So when you are going for a military conflict, you don't start striking the oil refineries and oil, oil fields. You start first striking at the military establishments or military sites which are going to fight back and strike back at you. So right now the first step which the Americans and even Iranians will take is to take out the radar systems, command and control systems, the ballistic missile storage systems, the ordnance systems, the systems which are going to feed into the machine of this thing, not on the economic system, right? Bandar Abbas, Charbahar port will come much later when you actually want to alienate the population of Iran. Right now you don't want to alienate the population of Iran. The first statement Trump said to the Iranian people, get away from the military bases and strikes. We don't want to hurt you. This is with the regime and the military and not with people of Iran. So he's created a distinction between the two. And therefore all his strikes till now have been factored and based onto these areas.
You know, Rahul, just
Yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah.
That I see what happened is that whichever is helping the military capability of Iran, these are the targets which are hit first. IRGC, then the nuclear facility, Natanz, Fordo and Ifsan, they have been hit. Also the storing facility and the military headquarters. Now, as far as the economy is concerned, like southern portion and eastern portion has not been hit, they have got two things. Oil they have got and they have got factories there. So they will hit possibly, if they hit now, what will impact? It will impact the oil prices of the whole world. So they don't want to hit. It is not going to add on to the military capability of Iran. As on today is to basically ensure that the paralysis take place as far as the military capability of Iran is there.
Big breaking news coming in, viewers. Indigo and Air India are cancelling flights. They're saying that crew and passenger safety is our top priority. We're also getting news from Qatar Airways. And I'm going to go into the newsroom for just a few moments because we're going to open this coverage up and we're going to bring in Aman Sharma in just 30 seconds. I'm going to come right out. What we're seeing, viewers, is the newsroom at the back as we work here. We're getting a lot of information coming in. And we're going to go and ask some of our colleagues about this information. There we have Siddhant coming in. Siddhant, you're speaking to someone on the phone. Yeah. This is very important. Yeah. Updates coming in. Air India, Indigo, everyone cancelling their flights. Tell us a little bit about here. You can use my mic. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yes, that's right. So Rahul, I was speaking to a friend in Dubai.
Yes.
So I was just trying to understand, get a sense from what exactly is happening in Dubai. So what I was told is that interceptor actually fell at Dubai airport yesterday.
Wow.
So it was not a missile, Iranian missile, but air defense interceptor fell at the airport. So in a way, they did manage to stop the Iranian missile to hit the airport. Then as far as the Palm Jumeirah missile is concerned, that was the Iranian missile which could manage to penetrate into the skies of Dubai and could hit a hotel at Palm Jumeirah. But right now situation is normal. The Indians in Dubai are safe. They are following the advisories. In fact, the government of India is in touch with the government of UAE as far as evacuation, etc. is concerned. And hopefully, once situation will settle down, then the flights will reopen, and those who are stranded at the airports and at various other places could travel back. So no need to panic. That's the message coming from Dubai.
No need to panic.
Is under control.
So let's go across to Aman. Aman, come across here. This is important because what we're also seeing is some protests happening now in India.
Yes, there is a lot of government is keeping a close watch on the not the protests. I would say these are more marches which are happening in Jammu and Kashmir. There's a big number of people who are collected in Srinagar. They've in fact gone to the UN office and put Khamenei's photo on the UN office there. So government is keeping a close watch. JNK Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, in fact, has put out a statement that let people grieve, don't stop them, because there's a huge Shia population, which is feeling hurt over the killing of Khamenei. All peaceful so far, but government is keeping a close watch. But I think, Rahul, the bigger story which is emerging is also the complete shutdown of the airspace in the Middle East. So Dubai airport, Abu Dhabi airport, two of the busiest airports in the world are shut. Etihad is not running flights. Emirates is not running flights. Thousands of people are stranded on airports in the Middle East. In India also, we've sent out our reporters to Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai airports, where many people have seen cancellation of their flights. So a lot of passenger inconvenience is happening. People are not able to board flights. People are either stuck at the transit airports in Abu Dhabi or Dubai. So that is also a big issue of concern which is emerging. But India keeping a close watch, and India, as Mr. Jaishankar has also been dialing the phone, the phones all night long, speaking to the foreign minister of other countries, asking these countries to ensure that the Indians in these countries remain safe.
So what are the conversations that Mr. Jaishankar is happening as we move? Come with me, because we can just we can show that part of the newsroom which is very busy. That's where a lot of viewers, the visuals that are coming in are being put and treated so that they can go on camera. So that's an operation that is going on here also. But Aman, you were talking about what the MEA has been doing, and I'm going to come across to Chetan also in just a few seconds. But yes, the MEA making a lot of calls, and the foreign minister putting out a lot of information.
See, Rahul, what is happening is that this is unprecedented, that civilian areas in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha are being targeted by the Iranian forces, and we have a huge Indian diaspora which lives in the Middle East. India is obviously very, very concerned about the safety of its people there, and that is why Mr. Jaishankar has called up his counterparts in Abu Dhabi. He's called up in UAE. He's spoken to them in Bahrain. He's called up every foreign minister in the Middle East, asking for one reassurance that Indians there should remain safe. It is not possible to evacuate anybody right now because the entire airspace is cut. But India's main priority is that Indian citizens should not get harmed in this conflict, and they should remain safe. All these countries have assured that, but of course India is concerned about the safety of Indians abroad, especially in the Middle East.
Well, come with me. We're going to go up to the desk that looks at social media to see what is really trending as of now. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
How's it going?
It's very chaotic, but it's going great.
So what are the trends right now? What is social media talking about?
What we can see is US and Israel strike Iran, kill Khamenei in Operation Epic Fury. I think this has
and then I can see the Srinagar Shia Muslims mourn Khamenei's death in US-Israeli strikes. So there's all that happening also. It's very interesting. Yes.
Elon Musk has also tweeted that this has been the largest that people have used Twitter today. So it's been really chaotic.
So X is seeing the highest ever traffic today. That is what Elon Musk is tweeting, that X is seeing perhaps the highest ever traffic due to Khamenei's killing.
Does he ever waste an opportunity to blow his own trumpet in one sense? Always see the business side to things.
Absolutely. And very interesting that the Shia protest in JNK is also trending. So I think that is something that we were discussing earlier. The government keeping a close watch. No repercussion in India should happen. That's the government's top priority. People are grieving. But so far, a non-violent protest. People are just marching in Srinagar towards the UN office.
In the past, when it has happened, we have seen crackdowns. But this time, the government seems to adopt a hands-off approach.
Yes, exactly. The government is not doing any crackdown. And that is what JNK Chief Minister Omar Abdullah is also appealing to the police forces that don't act harshly with these people. They are just mourning with the Khamenei's photograph. They're walking to the UN office. So don't crack down on them. Let them vent out their grief, and maybe that is the approach the government would take to ensure that everything remains under control.
Let's go across to Chetan. Chetan, let's follow me. This is the newsroom. We're reporting constantly on the updates. This is the engine where things are taking shape right now. Chetan, what are you showing us here?
I was trying to show you what Aman was mentioning, that the entire airspace, you can see the entire airspace from West Asia, from this area to Iraq, Iran, everything is shut. There are no planes, zero, nothing is there. And the same I can show you from a tweet from this guy, the Strait of Hormuz. All of these ships, this area is closed, completely shut.
all shut, is it?
Yeah.
And you can see all those ships are blockaded, sort of in the
So
bottleneck really.
everything is shut. You can see that this neck is closed. So everything, the busiest route, as they say, is shut.
And that's going to create a lot of problems for energy security. Aman, that's going to create problems, isn't it? And I'm going to bring in Murli also, who's looking at putting out videos, and he's, of course, heads the entire output of CNN News 18, the man who's been here from 3 in the morning. That was some call, 3 in the morning. We had a conference call, Murli. You've been here from 3 in the morning, and that really was something that shook us all. The Khamenei incident, and at that time, it was only Trump tweeting.
Yeah, it was kind of chaotic at that point of time. I think we got into a quick call and huddle, and we spoke how to get things rolling. We wanted Aman. Aman was the first to respond, of course. At the screen, we had Suri from Israel, who was giving us the first respondent, who was also the first respondent from Ground Zero. He was giving us all the information regarding the, the elimination of Khamenei. But as it was all building up overnight, and we were just waiting for the confirmation, and eventually, when POTUS tweeted, all hell broke loose. So it was, and it has been quite hectic since morning, and then we've been trying to catch up with a lot of stuff, a lot of things happening on the YouTube front as well. So we are trying to put out everything.
Aman, of course, is the guy who feeds the entire back end. So all inputs come through Aman. He's the gatekeeper of news into the channel. Now, Aman, we got to ask you this question. Are you surprised that the Indian government hasn't taken a more assertive stand? And of course, we have with us Siddhant also, who looks after the MEA, so I'm going to bring him into this. But what do you make of the Indian government's posture?
I think Rahul, they're just trying to, Indian government is as always, is trying to play a very delicate, fair line. We stand for de-escalation. So we have told both, in fact, Mr. Jaishankar called up his counterparts both in Iran and Israel last night itself and has called for de-escalation. India has also expressed its concern over the situation right now. And I think India is the most concerned about the strikes on the civilian areas in the Middle East, because that is what really directly affects us. As I was saying earlier, there's a lot of diaspora population there. We don't want Indians to get hurt in these strikes which are happening by Iran. We all expected that Iran only will be attacking the defense installations, the US bases in the Middle East, but I think Iran has gone a bit further, a lot further. Is it the case that Iran is turning rogue because their top leader has been killed? I know nobody really is in control, and they're attacking airports. So, Rahul, it's very surprising that they have attacked the Doha airport, they've attacked the Kuwait airport, they have attacked the Dubai airport. Dubai airport, in fact, saw the biggest explosion just a while back. So why is Iran attacking airports is a very, very perplexing thing. Do they want to cripple the aviation sector in this entire region? Because it will also, all the major players, be it Etihad, be it Emirates, all these major world players, if you shut down Dubai airport, Rahul, it's the busiest airport in the world, you're effectively shutting down aviation in nearly half of the globe, because that's a major transit airport. So I think these strikes, that aspect I think has taken us by surprise, because we never expected. Last evening we were talking about that, they will attack the US bases, but now I think it's expanding even further, and God forbid if the NATO gets involved in this.
Breaking news coming in. Fresh explosions have been heard in Dubai, and that means, viewers, that this crisis is deepening and widening as we speak, because there is no let up. We were just showing you how the Strait of Hormuz. Let's go back into the studio to look at the big visuals there. We're going to go back into the studio. This is the newsroom, viewers, and I'm going to go straight to Tom Cooper and get a sense really of what is happening. General Pandey is there with us. You can see them in the background there. General Sivach is there with us. Adrian Fontanellas is there with us. We're all trying to cover this. Let's go in very quickly. Big breaking news coming in now, viewers. Dubai hit once more. So this would be the 7th or 8th wave, and Dubai bearing the brunt. And we've shown you how Dubai is really just across from the Strait of Hormuz, from the coast there of Iran, and it's easy to target them. And they obviously are in the direct line of fire. Lots of Indians there. The airspace shut. We just showed you all of that. I want to go straight across to Tom Cooper and General Pandey to get a quick update from them on how this is going to play out. So, Tom, this is looking a little more intense than we thought yesterday, because these Gulf nations are pounding. And they're small, they're tiny. This city was part of a big transformation to move away from the oil economy, to move away into the services economy, to move into the AI and technical economy. And if these engines, these were the tigers of the Gulf, the new tigers economies of the Gulf, if they're beginning to take a pounding, this is going to have a new implication, isn't it?
Well, obviously, yes. I mean, it is an ironic situation that the US and Israeli government have had it easy to start a war, but have no idea how to end it now. And obviously, most of the local rulers didn't expect this to develop this way. Therefore, they have granted bases to US forces. And of course, now they are at the receiving end of Iranian retaliation. This is, from my point of view, absolutely logical and to expect. But apparently, nobody over there expected it. So the question is, how responsible are they for defense of their own states? Why ignoring what is obvious? Why not taking care to protect the people who are living and working there?
Sort of widen the theater, stretch the capacities of Israel and the US to try?
They do not care.
They do not care.
They do not care because they have their own aims. One of these was to start this war. And what happens after, they are going to blame somebody else.
So are you saying to me that the regime there is so pushed back to the wall that they are prepared to go the extra yard, even alienate?
They have always said so. They had always said so. This was never a secret. That if they have their own red lines, the Iranian regime, and they say, they have always clearly said, if you attack us in this fashion, like Israel and United States have now done, then they are going to retaliate precisely in this fashion. That was never in any way a secret, because the IGC was always publishing
Okay, so we're just hearing that Iran's Temporary Leadership Council is going to be formed today. So General Pandey, I have to ask you, and I'm going to bring in Adrian also, and General Sivach. General Pandey, we knew that the Iranians were not going to give up as easily as perhaps the Venezuelans, or even the Pakistanis is, to be honest, during Operation Sindoor. So we knew that. Now, are you surprised that these individual Gulf states have been caught so flat-footed? This is damaging optics. This is also going to shake public resolve, and it could also turn public opinion. After all, there is, to some degree, a pan-Islamic brotherhood. And we've seen what is happening in Baghdad on the ground there, where the US assets are being overrun, the US embassy has been overrun.
Yeah, okay. I will not like to call it as overrun, but yes, they have been targeted. I think the Gulf countries had thought that in case they don't allow their airspace or bases to fire missiles or carry out operations against Iran, they will be left untouched. Unfortunately, I think, and I disagree with my fellow panelists on this, that this is a strategic biggest blunder which Iran has done. While they have an affinity in terms of Islam in the region, but larger number of people have understood that they can't continue to live off the oil economy, they cannot continue to live off the petrodollars, and there is a requirement to move away to a well-integrated modern systems which was drawing the world towards these few countries like the Gulf countries like in Doha, in Dubai. And there was a transformation which was taking. While I am sure the leadership in these countries were well aware that the environment is not secure, but they have sold the pitch. And if you recall, even in India, the communities were saying that it's far safer to go to Dubai in terms of not only investment, but in terms of street violence, in terms of safety of women and
but
men.
now all of that is going to be sort of up in the air.
Absolutely.
People are going to be sort of looking over their shoulders, this unpredictability,
who was
instability.
not happy about what was happening in the Gulf country? There was only one element which was not happy, and that was Iran. Well, in that, the US is surely complicit by ensuring the sanctions, getting on to the economic, making them economically so down that Riyal has got just no value. But yet, if the strategic orientation of a country continues to remain into a Cold War era environment of destruction of Israel or US,
No, but
I
obviously
think
there is a
will be some
military
consequences.
objective at play here. Tom Cooper.
Military objective. It is a clash of ideologies, actually. You have in India here an ideology of dialogue, of meeting people, talking with each other, communicating. And somewhere else, people do not want to communicate, but they want to impress their own will upon everybody else. And this is the system over there. We have actually one dictatorship in Iran facing 6 or 7 dictatorships in Gulf Arab states, plus de facto dictatorships in the United States and Israel now. So nobody of them is particularly nice or friendly or some great guys or whatever.
So Shivani, what's the latest coming in?
Yes, of course, as far as the aftermath of these strikes is concerned, we are seeing large-scale disruptions in air travel. So not just in India, where a lot of flights to and from Middle East, and obviously those that go across the Middle East, all of those have been either disrupted, cancelled till tomorrow, till March 2 already. Disruptions and cancellations have come in. But you also have a lot of Indians, particularly in the Middle East, who are now stuck in those countries. Many of them were actually trying to fly out till before these strikes happened, and airports have been struck. So therefore, they just cannot fly out right now.
Think about the economic costs here. Now look at this footage that is coming on IANS. And Adrian, I'm going to come out to you. Listen, you're going to start hearing, viewers, sirens going off in Tel Aviv. So a ghoulish sound across the skyscraper. This is what you're hearing if you are on the ground in Tel Aviv. And we were speaking to one of our panelists whose daughters are in a bunker right now. Our own reporter is in a bunker. This is not a one-way war at all. There is obviously a state of emergency in Israel also. How well is Israel prepared to weather this storm?
Because I've heard somewhere that
they are quite well prepared in the sense of they have a very dense anti-ballistic missiles umbrella with Arrow and David Sling systems. And what is more, last year they managed to have a very limited number of civilian casualties, because almost every recent apartment flat has a safe protected safe house. So in that sense, they are well protected. However, what is extremely difficult to assess when Israel is on the receiving hand of ballistic missile strikes is that they are never communicating about hits on their military bases and installations or in unpopulated area. So we have to keep in mind that we have only a very limited view of the effect of the Iranian missile impacts in Israel. It is very difficult to know, for example, if any Israeli airbase were touched, especially those in the desert. And what I can say, because in our jargon, whilst targeting military installation, we speak about counter-force. And when you begin to start to target civilian infrastructures, it is counter-value. So the indication that we can have is if we are seeing more and more impacts in downtown Tel Aviv, then the Iranians are switching to counter-value strikes in the retaliations for Israeli strikes against Tehran.
Okay, so let me bring in Sajjan Har. Mr. Sajjan Har, we know that the Israeli government is not very popular. We also know that there have been protests against Netanyahu and the wars that he's prosecuting. Some people believe that he wants to entrench himself in power, Shivani. That's something that has been talked about, that he is doing all of this to keep himself in power. There's an election looming in the next few months in Israel, and he wants to consolidate, he wants to build public and rally the public opinion behind him. He's a war prime minister.
Since October 7, 2023, I think things have changed as far as Israel's mindset is concerned. And since then, we've heard about it for the last 2.5 years. Netanyahu has pockets of, dissatisfaction and opposition. We recently saw that play out when the Prime Minister was set to speak in their Knesset. So, that has not gone away. But I think in all of this, what we've noticed is, and our military experts can possibly point out to it more, that the resolve that this is not going to stop at Gaza, in Palestine alone, but they want to take care of the entire region, which they think is the problem.
Is that actually a fact, Mr. Sajjan Har? We're coming to you, and I'm really, really thankful to you for being so patient with us. We've got a lot of inputs and a lot of ground to constantly cover. Larijani says US-Israel seek to denigrate Iran, and we are not giving up. And Just a short while back, we were being told by Trump that he softened up the Iranian leadership enough for them now to be amenable. It looks as if we can actually have a conversation. He's looking for an off-ramp. It's not coming, Mr. Sajanhar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rahul, for getting back to me. So let me make 2 points here. Number one, what you've been discussing in terms of the fact that Iran has been going out and hitting out at UAE, at Dubai, and all the other places. In my view, Iran is hitting, shooting itself in the foot by doing this. Because the understanding was earlier that when this conflict starts, and Iran had threatened that the American bases in the region are going to be hit. So it was not that, indiscriminate shooting, indiscriminate firing at even civilian populated places and marketplaces and hotels will be undertaken by Iran. So the fact that it has gone out, I think it is behaving really like a wounded animal. It has been hurt. It has been hurt so badly. There is no, in my view, there is no planning in what it is doing. It is lashing out indiscriminately wherever it can. But I think we also need to keep in mind, Rahul, that Iran has been really a pariah state as far as this region is concerned for much of the 47 years. It's only the last few years, 5, 6, 7 years, that relations have started mellowing, relations have started improving between Iran and Saudi Arabia, Iran and the United Arab Emirates, etc. And by acting like this, it is again taking itself back out of the relationship that had come. The second point here is, I don't think there is going to be any softening as far as the current regime, the question you asked, current regime in Iran is concerned, because they owe their existence to the infrastructure that has been created by the Islamic Republic. First Imam Khomeini and now Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So I don't think that they will find any takers, unlike Venezuela, who are willing to work with them. The day after what Israel and US have done, they will have to look for a new leadership. Now, they don't seem to be very convinced that Reza Pahlavi, the son of the former Shah, that he fits the bill. But then they'll really have to come up with another leadership. This leadership is not going to cooperate with him. Having been in Iran in the earlier years of the establishment of the revolution in the early 80s and till recently, I know that those people are inveterately opposed to anything coming from Israel and the United States. Even today, you hear chants of Marg bar America, Marg bar Israel, that is death to America. And they call America Shaitane Buzurg, the big devil, and Shaitane Kuchek, that is Israel, that is the small devil. So, they are not going to compromise.
You don't think so? You don't think, Mr. Sajanhar, that you're going to see some pragmatists and realists coming now into power, seeing that, look, we could be the next Gaza. You could turn Tehran into Berlin of the World War, of the Second World War. It could be completely reduced to rubble. Do you not see these people sort of realizing that this is a one-way street to Armageddon?
No, they don't. You see, you must also understand, Rahul, in Shiaism, martyrdom is a very big objective. Being martyred to the cause is something that you aspire for. And that is why you will not find any one of them backing out. You have to look at the ideology also. They are not rational people, so that, okay, fine, this is the end of the road and I can make a turn. No, as far as they are concerned, they will much rather prefer to be martyred to the cause rather than change their stance.
Okay, what are we seeing behind me, viewers? What are we seeing behind me? We are seeing CENTCOM releasing the first pictures of the 24 hours of Operation Epic Fury. This is what we're seeing. We're going to be speaking to Tom and we're going to be speaking to others to get a sense of what these pictures are, from where they could be taken. Tom, what do you think? These are pictures of battery launchers, a battleship, a warplane. what is all this? This is a lot of nice boys' toys, but can you put it in perspective for us? Yeah. You want to come out here? You want to come out here? This is a runway. Which one of these battleships are these? Where are these positioned, and so on and so forth?
For example, this is the HIMARS. This is Phalanx, and you can see a cruise missile launching. This is an F-15. This is a strike on Iranian. I guess it is a launcher. Landing of an F-35. These are guided missiles, and this is aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln. Helicopter, HIMARS again. This is also HIMARS. So they are also using ballistic missiles, tactical ballistic missiles, to strike precisely selected points in Iran. Strike on a Iranian.
And all this array of weaponry.
Yes.
And people were saying that this particular warship has been deployed for the longest period in American history. I think for the one operation continuously for months on months. What would be the morale on the deck? We've been getting pictures of malfunctioning toilets and so on and so forth. How do these soldiers prepare themselves for the long run? What must be the morale there? Are they wanting to get back home? Is that something that Iran could probably be factoring? Let's fatigue. Let's stretch this out, siege battle mentality. Let's keep them stewing there. What goes on?
In particular, U.S. Navy sailors, so to say, they are trained to do the job, and they are going to do the job, whatever it takes, no matter how long it lasts. And the toilets, if necessary, they are going to sit, on the railings and do their stuff into the sea. So they are going to do their job and do their job. That is out of question, that they are going to be demoralized to the point where they wouldn't fight.
So what has the US deployed now in its offensive capacities? Take us through some of the weapon systems that the US is deploying to try and knock out Iran and degrade the defenses of Iran to the point where perhaps the Iranian regime surrenders.
Could I have a map of Middle East, please, show?
Yes, we're going to show a map of the Middle East right now. Can we just bring out that map and we're going to talk over that map. But these are the first pictures from CENTCOM viewers of the operation. So 24 hours of what the Americans have been doing. They've shown how all the panoply of weapons that they have deployed are being used. Here it is, the map.
So, for example, we have, here is Israel.
Yes.
And here is Jordan.
Yeah.
There's a huge base in Jordan.
Yeah.
Named Muwafaq Salti, where there are something like 50 US combat aircraft, US Air Force.
Right.
They are flying strikes together with the Israelis, usually via Syria, via Iraq, against targets in western, northwestern Iran. Then we have in Saudi Arabia one air base with B-52s and tankers. Tanker aircraft are flying up here to support incoming airstrikes from Israel and from Jordan and refuel them so they can accelerate and launch air-launched ballistic missiles deep into Iran to strike the Tehran area. Then we have other smaller bases, like for example in Qatar, in Bahrain and United Arab Emirates, where there are lighter tactical aircraft of the US Air Force. They are flying strikes against IRGC command nodes and command and control centers in southern Iran. Then we have one aircraft carrier in the Gulf of Oman, which is flying its own airstrikes against targets also in the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz. We have another aircraft carrier in the eastern Mediterranean. It's probably going to pass the Suez Canal, Red Sea, and then move up here over the time.
So you don't see this staying there?
No, because the range is very, very long. And the longer the range, the more tanker aircraft they need. So if it moves down here, it's closer to Iran to strike. You know, eventually they are going to try to neutralize the Iranian air defenses and missile capabilities to the degree where they can move their ships really close to the coast. That's the point. And this is what they are trying right now. Destroy the command and communications, destroy the capability to coordinate, and weaken the air defenses to the degree where the aircraft would be free to operate over Iran. So claiming after only 24 hours that they have now control over Western Iran or something else, this is much too early. We have seen this last year in June, didn't happen.
General Pandey, what's your assessment of this CENTCOM video and the claim?
Yeah, so
air dominance over Western Iran, they say.
Yeah, but the fact is that CENTCOM is the one which is controlling these operations in this region. That's they look after this geographical region as part of operations. And these video pictures which are being released, they may be very well pre-recorded videos which are part of the narrative warfare. which is, I don't see any videos of strikes on them or Israel, which is being released by the Israelis, but that's all right. I think it's a part of the, it's part of our course. But the question which you asked about Ford having been out in the sea for about 240 odd days plus and having been towards Venezuelan waters and this thing. Please understand the machines are deployed till the time they require a long-term repair, right? The repairs which continue at sea are par for the course. Similarly, the soldiers, the sailors, I believe they got about 4,000 to 5,000 sailors and officers on board Ford, which is one of the which is not exactly one of the largest, but which is a very important carrier, aircraft carrier. They also rotate. It is not that a sailor who is joined last 2 years has stayed only on sailing with a carrier strike force, remains at the sea. They carry out very frequent turnovers, but more importantly, I think they have a concept of a tour of duty. When they go out to operations, they remain for a pre-designed, pre-designated period of time. They are trained, they are organized, something like what we do. When we go for an operations, we are out for a year off and thereafter we get a break or something like that. I think it should not be a big issue for the sailors on.
No issue at all.
Okay, General Sivach.
Remember that, Rahul, once you are at sea, you are at war. In the sense, Indian Navy also, when it goes, it does not mean that they are working 24/7, 365 days. Their system. Now remember, the troops which are deployed on line of control, on line of actual control, on high altitude, that does not mean they remain throughout the year there. So there is a system in place. But what we are talking about, the larger picture here in this contest is, now the way the Iran has gone about, which all countries has he hit? He has hit all the countries where there are bases. But then he had initially said that he will be only striking to the military bases of the countries where they are in the Middle East. But what they have done, they have also hit the civilian installation. So basically what they have done is they have really hit their own foot. And now what has happened is all the countries which are in Middle East, now they are feeling let off. In the sense, one thing should be who is the security responder in this area. Obviously, it was US, because that's why these countries have given their bases there, and that's why they are there. And Bahrain and Qatar, if you see it, they have hit them. Bahrain is where there is a 5th fleet, and Qatar is where there is a central command headquarters, and also the air base Al Udeid. So, thing is, I suppose the philosophy and the strategy of Iran is faulty. They must have only restricted to the military installation of the US in Middle East rather than hitting the civilian target, wherein all these countries, in case they had a soft corner for Iran, as on today, it shifts.
Big pictures coming in. This is Doha. Remember, we were talking about this just a short while back, Tom and Shivani. This was the minaret. What we were seeing was something from this angle. Now what we're seeing is down the road. So this is a main artery. And as General Sivach was saying, they had said that they were restricting themselves to military targets, but they're actually hitting civilian installations. It could be, I don't know. What do you make of these?
I'm cautioning always against some kind of, the Iranians are just striking civilian targets and we are, Americans and Israelis are striking just military targets. Iranians are very much trying to strike military targets. It's the precision of their weaponry which is lacking. It's the fact that they're not always routing their UAVs in the best way, so they hit high-rise building in between.
Yes.
So I wouldn't bet always that it is intentional strike on civilian targets.
You're seeing this plume of smoke. It's pretty dark smoke. What do you think has caused this? This is a drone attack, would you say, or this is, do you think?
I don't know what was used, but looks like fuel burning.
Looks like fuel. Fuel
or
burning again.
Some plastic or something like that, because it's dark.
It's dark. So maybe there was some sort of a storage facility, or it could have been even a factory making some materials.
Factory unlikely, but storage facility in the headquarters of the.
I want us to go straight across to Sanjay Suri, who joins me from Tel Aviv. Remember, viewers, this is the only network that have their own man in Tel Aviv. So we're going to go straight across to Sanjay. Thank you very much, Sanjay. I know it's been a long night for you and you took a cat nap, but you're standing there against what looks like bright skies. Is it really as tranquil as it looks in your background, or is it true that there are continuous air raid sound sirens that go off every so often?
Well, looks can be deceptive, particularly momentary looks. It's not calm here at all. There have been sirens going all night. We've been hearing a number of blasts, and a lot of these are certainly anti-missile launches, interceptor launches. And we have reports of one ballistic missile that has hit central Tel Aviv. It got past the defenses. A number of injuries have been reported. A residential block has been damaged. There are also reports coming in, unconfirmed yet, of one death in this ballistic missile attack. And these attacks are continuing as we speak. There are sirens going on here all the time. Clearly, the Iranians are hitting. They're hitting with all they've got, and they've hit Israel at several places, Haifa, Jerusalem, and here in Tel Aviv. The question is how far they can continue to do so. And when we are thinking of that kind of scenario, it's a question of how quickly and how extensively the ballistic missile system in place in Iran can be neutralized by Israeli and US forces. Because as long as that is in place, and as long as you have at least some working remnant of authority in Tehran, continuing from the Khamenei setup, these attacks are certain to continue to hit Israel, continue to hit Tel Aviv, and also hit across the Arab world and causing the disruption we've already seen.
Stay on with me because we're doing what is known as a joint broadcast. So from I-24 News, we've got Natasha Kirchuk, who's joining us straight from Israel. And I want to go straight across to her. Natasha, if you can hear me, thank you very much for speaking to us. I know you must be very busy, just like we are, covering this war. It's so close to home. What exactly is happening right now on the ground in Israel? What is the information coming out from the government and IDF? What has been the impact of your offensive on Iran? And why, I'm sorry, I'm giving you a number of questions here. What really is happening in the larger Gulf region?
All right, well, a lot to uncover here. I think your correspondent spoke briefly about what took place in Tel Aviv last night. We have been seeing waves, over 300 ballistic missiles fired from the Islamic Republic of Iran towards the state of Israel. So Israelis across the country have essentially been running in and out of bomb shelters over the course of the last 24 hours since those strikes began just after 10:15 a.m. But I think the big news on everybody's minds here, and it's important to keep in mind that, you know, many Israelis have been saying they've been waiting for this moment. It's not that Israelis want to necessarily be sitting in bomb shelters and putting their lives at risk. But, you know, the idea here for Israelis is there's finally a chance to eliminate the so-called head of the snake, the axis of resistance that has been run by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so, you know, one of the moments where history has really shifted in real time was that announcement last night of the killing of the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei. This is not just the death of a leader, it's a removal of a central pillar of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And, you know, for nearly 4 decades, this was a man who was the ultimate authority in Tehran. You know, the leader above the president, above parliament, above the generals. He had final say over military, over the nuclear program, over foreign policy that has impacted Israelis. And of course, crucially, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is not just a military force, it's an ideological and economic powerhouse that has ultimately been projecting Iranian influence far beyond the borders. So, you know, last night, what we understand from what took place is that there was a precise intelligence-driven strike by the Israelis. About 30 bombs were dropped on the Supreme Leader's compound in Tehran in the opening phase of this joint operation that Israel has been calling Operation Roaring Lion. And so we see the imagery that the compound was largely destroyed. Then President Donald Trump obviously announced Khamenei had been killed as well. And this is really not just a symbolic moment. It was really the decapitation, the strategic brain of the regime being attacked by Iran, and a major reason for Israelis to celebrate, because Israelis refer to Khamenei as the head of the snake. Under, you know, Khamenei, Iran developed the axis of resistance. They built a network of armed proxies across the Middle East that were designed to encircle the state of Israel and expand Iranian power and Sharia law without direct conventional war. So even if you haven't been seeing Israel and the IRGC directly in conflict, like we have been seeing over the course of the last 2 years, in Lebanon, Iran has been arming and financing the terror group Hezbollah, which has an arsenal of rockets and missiles that they've been firing into Israel since October 7th. Hezbollah has become stronger than the Lebanese state itself, so contributing to deep economic collapse in that country. So it's
Natasha,
not just
hold
Israel
your
being
thoughts
affected.
for just a few seconds, because I want your comments on a couple of things.
Yes.
Another big breaking news development coming through. Major General Abdul Rahim Mousavi, who's the Chief of Staff of the IRGC, has been eliminated. That's what we are being told. Chief of Staff killed. That's a big development there. It appears that the top leadership of the regime is taking massive hits. So the Israeli and the US action is proving to be extremely effective on the ground as far as creating some sort of hole or vacuum in the decision-making process in Iran. So I want to bring back Natasha and speak to her a little bit about this. We were told that this was going to be a preemptive strike, in the sense a strike that tells Iran, we're serious, you've still got time to reconsider, come to the table, but when you eliminate the Ayatollah, when you take out the top leadership pretty much effectively, you already have a transition. This appears to be not quite a preemptive strike. This was something a lot more, would you not say?
Absolutely. I mean, the Islamic Republic of Iran does not recognize the legitimacy of the state of Israel. For decades, Khamenei has openly called for Israel's destruction. This was not just fringe rhetoric that was coming from the Islamic Republic. It was official state doctrine. So, yes, you could say that Israel said this was a preemptive strike. In many ways, it was. We know that the Islamic Republic of Iran has an arsenal of ballistic missiles, has been working to develop a nuclear weapon. One of the main targets is the state of Israel. So yes, in that sense, any strike on Iran is preemptive to the Israelis, which is why you're seeing that very emotional reaction from Israelis about the death of Khamenei and other leadership within the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's fair to say, we understand the reports now that Israel and the United States have been working for months on a plan to essentially topple this regime. Trump said that out loud. The goal, at least from the Americans, has been to topple the regime. The Israelis will continue to say what is the truth and was always the truth, that they do not want Iran to pose a security threat to the Israeli public. And when the Islamic Republic of Iran has refused time after time to stop building up this arsenal of ballistic missiles, to stop working on a nuclear weapon while openly calling for Israel's destruction, then yes, it is a form of self-defense to be attacking the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that is the argument on the part of the Israeli government.
Okay, so stay on with me. I want to bring in Tom Cooper, who's the world's #1 military analyst, with Adrian Fontazella also here with us, another military analyst. Both of them are also part of this coverage. Tom Cooper, what do you make of this first strike, new news that the chief of the chief of staff of the military outed now, finished, decapitated?
It's a double-edged sword, because on one side he was a military incompetent, or at least assessed as such. So it could easily happen that somebody far more capable is going to replace him. On the other, and far more hawkish, far more anti-Israel, anti-United States.
Maybe radical.
On the other hand, it could be that due to the loss of his influence, because he was politically influential, and therefore he had a say in lots of things that Iranian armed forces were doing. It could be that due to his demise, that there is going to be a sort of a mini power vacuum in regards of how the armed forces controlled and organized. But yes, it could be a double-edged sword as well.
Adrian, we've been going down now the list, really, of military leadership in Iran. And I think my colleague here, Shivani, has got the details of who has been eliminated.
Yes.
how does this work? If you are depleting the leadership, how do people step in, and how are they expected to perform at levels of their predecessors?
It's a pure matter of preparation and structure. So, at first, if you build an organization which allows subordinate or regional commands, for example, to operate independently, just in case they are cut off from the higher command, it can still function. And then second, it is how well you organized your succession plans. It is well known that the IRGC organized itself in order to be resilient in the face of such decapitation strikes. It was expected from them since 2 decades. So, and militarily wise, you shall never underestimate an enemy, and always take the worst case scenario. And it is very plausible that actually these decapitation strikes are more like PR strikes, because you can claim that you had this head, and that head, and so you are winning. But at the end of the day, if you are facing an organization which is which has built-in redundancy, then it is not very efficient. And this is demonstrated by history, because it was the case with Hezbollah, with Al-Qaeda, with Hamas, and all these organizations managed to survive decapitation strikes.
Shivani, more news coming in.
Yes, so we've got a confirmation now, and I think these are confirmation coming in from the Iranians themselves, that Aziz Nasridzadeh, the Minister of Defense, has been eliminated in these strikes. So I'll just give you a list, Rahul, and for the benefit of our viewers just joining us, these are just the first set of strikes. 24 hours have elapsed since the first strikes began. So you've got Ali Khamenei, the Supreme Leader himself, taken out in those first set of strikes. Ali Shamkhani, Advisor for Security Affairs and Secretary of the Defense Council. Mohammad Pakpour, who was the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Mohammad Shirazi, head of the Military Bureau. Aziz Nasridzadeh, who was the Minister of Defense. And just now, we got a confirmation of the Chief of Armed Forces, the Chief of Armed Staff, Major General Abdul Rahim Mosavi. These have all been eliminated. So this is, of course, the top rung. And as our experts have been pointing out, Tom wants to come in, there will be possibly a secondary and a tertiary level of targets that would have been identified.
There's some big breaking news coming in. Locals protesting strikes on Iran have stormed, we're being told, the US consulate in Karachi.
Yes.
Now, this is Pakistan, viewers. And this is why I have been saying, because there are these protests happening in India now, especially in Delhi, in pockets of Lucknow, in Kargil, in Srinagar, that they need to be stopped, because it's quite possible that they may go out of hand. Yes, you can allow for a little bit of what is known as the release of the pressure valve, but if it becomes too much, it could lead to this. Look at the outcomes. Now we have 2 consulates, one in Baghdad, one in Karachi. Both, as you can see, let's go full frame to these pictures. These are dramatic pictures coming out. You can see the American flag, so quite clearly this is not an abandoned premises. You can see it. You can see it's a low building with a single story. It's very well fortified, but somehow these protesters have got through, and they're not 1 or 2, there are hundreds of them. These gates have been overrun. Tom Cooper, this is going to be something that might become, I don't know, might become part of what is the non-military play, and could have a huge bearing on the way things play out in the Gulf, and will begin to play on American minds. If you have a repeat of what happened in 1979, 1980, a hostage crisis, it could change the equation.
That the Americans very good at recalling the occupation of the embassy in Tehran in '79, but they do not recall the all-out attack by a mob in Islamabad on the US embassy there at the same time, in which at least 4 people were killed. So they are not recalling something they don't like to recall, and they are recalling something they do like to recall. Yes, it could get this could get very serious, especially because in Pakistan there is lots of anti-US sentiment, and that is not going to change anytime soon.
This is despite, of course, the leadership causing up to the American leadership.
Yes, this is not looking good, viewers, from an optics point of view. You can have very many different ways of exerting pressure. Let me bring back from I-24 News in Israel, Natasha, who was with us. Natasha, these pictures are coming through. It's quite clear what the Iranians are trying to do. They're trying to rouse sentiments amongst Muslims in the Gulf and in perhaps even the subcontinent. This could have other impacts on the way this entire crisis plays out, because if it begins to enter into the civilian domain and there are casualties, specifically American civilian casualties, that could have a bearing on the politics in DC, could bear pressure on Mr. Trump to recalibrate, and perhaps even Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We are now in a direct state-on-state missile exchange. That is what is happening. We've been seeing Iran try to fight these strikes from both the United States and Israel, both militarily and also through rhetoric. We've seen Iran fire over 300 ballistic missiles, but you have to remember, they've not only been firing at the state of Israel, they've also been firing at nearby Gulf states. We are talking about strikes in countries like Kuwait, in the United Arab Emirates, in Qatar. So while they may be trying to rouse the sentiments, and you could say try to get the goodwill of the wider Muslim Republic, the Gulf Arab nations are also seeing that Iran is striking them as well. So this is a very complicated picture. You know, obviously we know that in Iran, the picture is complicated. The state TV has declared these 40 days of mourning. But there are also reports of widespread celebration by Iranians. So the regime is dealing with the significant domestic unrest, along with this economic hardship, these strikes from the United States and Israel. And it's really just kind of pulling at the last straws to see if there's anybody who is left there to provide some level of support. But at this point, it seems like the IRGC is going to try to consolidate their power quickly. We know that there are succession mechanisms that the system has. The big question, of course, is whether this is a moment that is just going to totally fracture the regime or somehow harden it. And it seems, you know, for the broader Arab world, the implications are really just massive, because if Iran's ability to coordinate and finance Hezbollah and the Houthis and all these other militias is now disrupted, we could see major shifts in Lebanon and Yemen and Syria and Iraq. Some governments in the region are definitely quietly welcoming the weakening of the network, even if they don't necessarily love that it's the United States and Israel that were the ones to initiate these strikes. So I think, you know, instability is definitely looking like the strongest possibility right now for the Islamic Republic of regime. I think everyone here is kind of just waiting to see how long this is going to last and what it's ultimately going to mean for those who end up succeeding Khamenei.
Well, as of now, the Iranians don't seem to be backing down. Of course, it's only been 24 hours, early days, and they're taking a lot of casualties. Thank you, Natasha, for joining us. I want to go straight across to Raj Shekhar, who's joining us live from Abu Dhabi. He's a resident there. Abu Dhabi saw some strikes yesterday. What's it like, and what are you hearing? Because we're getting news that there are more and more strikes now in Dubai also. So what is the information that is coming to you, Raj Shekhar? How secure are you? How secure do you think you will be over the next few days? You're just across from Iran.
Yeah, hi, sir. Actually, like before launching any missiles, we are getting some alert messages in mobiles. They are telling us to not to leave our camps or workplaces. They are telling us to stay wherever we are instead of roaming in open areas. Because we, before getting alert messages, we can see missiles flying. We stay here near 2 kilometers away from Al Dafra US air base. We see US air base people are counter-attacking those missiles with their missiles. So those counter-attacks happening and debris is falling down. Because of the debris only, civilians are dying. Some civilians are dying, and it's danger to roam outside. So it's better to stay in our camps or in our workplaces instead of roaming openly.
Raj Shekhar, stay on with me. Stay on with me, because you said that you are close to a US airbase. How far is the airbase from you, and what's the activity around the airbase? I don't want you to reveal anything. I just want you to tell me if it looks like there has been preparation made to counter strikes.
Yes, we stay 2 kilometers away from US airbase. We can see here above the sky missiles roaming here and there before getting alerts. After getting alerts, we can see missiles flying on the sky.
Wow.
But for civilians, it's not a problem if we stay in workplaces and also in our camps. But we should not roam here and there.
Okay.
If we roam here and there, it's very dangerous.
So we're going to come back to you and check back with you in just a few moments. Stay on with us. You can disconnect, go back into a safe shelter. We don't want you to expose yourself or people around you. So thank you very much. We'll come back to you in just a short while. But viewers, there's also news now coming out of both Baghdad and Karachi. And this news is of massive, and we just showed you that attack that has just taken place on Karachi. Let's go to those pictures, Director Saab. Let's go full frame to those pictures. There you can see those pictures. Those are coming straight out of... Now just go to the picture to the right of your screens, Director. Let's have a look at the Karachi pictures only. Those are the pictures to the right of your screens. There are many more pictures coming in from Karachi. There you can see... Let's just only focus on the Karachi pictures. Can you hear me? Yeah. Let's open this up. Let's open this up. There you can see it. This is now quite overwhelming, Tom Cooper. This is something that has happened. The security wall perimeter has been breached. Are you seeing this as part of a unorganized public reaction, or could there be an element of sabotage, military sabotage?
It is simply a prevalent public feeling, so to say, outburst of public feelings in Pakistan.
Okay. So you don't attribute bigger motives. Now I want to go across to Dr. Anand Ranganathan. We also have with us Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Dr. Ranganathan, this is happening even in India now. And I certainly have been saying over the last 3 hours, clamp down on this because it could lead to much more. And you know where we have been with this in the past. We've seen Srinagar overrun when Nasrallah was killed because there are a bunch of people in this country who think that they can get away by eulogizing bloodthirsty patriarchs who have imprisoned half their population and committed war crimes and all sorts of other horrible crimes against the rest of humanity.
Good afternoon, Rahul, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists on a day with the incredibly fast-moving developments. I have very quickly 2 points to make before others come in. Number one, thank you for saying what you have said. You know, the irony is that the Iranians are celebrating the deaths of the despot on their streets, and the Indians are marching in support and crying. This is unbelievable. And as you said, this has to be stopped. I mean, let me give you a background. This guy who's been eliminated called India an oppressor state. He was the one who's killed tens of thousands of his own people. He's sponsored large-scale international terror operations like, funding Hezbollah and much worse. And here we have tens of thousands of Indians marching onto the streets in Kashmir, in Lucknow, and in other parts. This has to be stopped by the Indian government. And number two, very important point. The way this conflict moves forward is completely independent of what Iran does from here on. It is totally, overwhelmingly and wholly dependent on how America and Israel look at this, because please remember that a long drawn-out war will not be acceptable to America, because America has traditionally lost any war that has been long drawn out. Vietnam comes to mind, Afghanistan comes to mind. So the fact is, Americans entered into this war very swiftly, knowing that they need a regime change as soon as possible, because Russia, on the other hand, does not care. It may be a decade before its conflict with Ukraine ends. It doesn't care how many body bags of Russians come back. America, on the other hand, is petrified of that scenario. So it is not going to be a long drawn-out war as far as America is concerned. They want to end it as soon as possible, and the results were shown on the first day itself when they eliminated the supreme leader. From here on, it is not at all on what Iran does.
Oh, you think so? Let me bring in Zvika Klein, editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. Thank you very much for being patient and waiting for us. We're also joined by Adrian Fontanellas, and of course there's Tom Cooper, and we also have with us Dr. Mordecai. Dr. Mordecai, there is an impression gaining ground that, at least as of now in the first 24 hours, that the Iranians will cave in. Do you share that? Do you share that impression? Because they've just elevated, and we had reported this about 2 hours earlier, Mortaba Khamenei, who is the grandson of the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran. There's also explosions happening. 11 explosions have been heard in Doha, according to some reports. So there's all sorts of expansion happening of this offensive that we're seeing in the Gulf.
Well, this is the result of the fact that Iran had many tentacles spreading all over the Middle East and beyond the Middle East. And now, after 47 years that the world is suffering from the Iranian expansionism, now when the octopus is being challenged, now all these tentacles are being folded, and therefore you see the ramifications in many places. Definitely, it is time already that the civilized world will say to the mullahs that they should leave the scene, because they brought only havoc and destruction and bloodshed and killing and suffering wherever they were. And it's time that the civilized world will unite in order to get rid of them and to return to the normalcy which Iran was under until 1978.
Okay, let's boost the gnat on those pictures. And Abhijit Iyer Mitra, I'm just going to come to you.
कराची को आग लगा दिया है अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह रहबर पर हमले का बदला लिया जा रहा है अमेरिकी कौंसल खाने को आग लगा दिया है अमेरिकी कौंसल खाने कराची को आग लगा दिया है अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह रहबर पर हमले का बदला लिया जा रहा है अमेरिकी कौंसल खाने को आग लगा दिया है अमेरिकी कौंसल खाने कराची को आग लगा दिया है अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह रहबर पर हमले का बदला लिया जा रहा है अमेरिकी कौंसल खाने को आग लगा दिया है
There you can hear it very clearly. They're invoking the name of the Lord, and they're saying that they have avenged what has been going on in Iran. And this is happening. US consulate in Karachi, the flag, according to the person that's speaking, has also been set on fire, at least at the lower level. The consulate has also been set on fire. You can see the flames. I don't know if they've been able to breach and go into the consulate. Certainly they've been able to breach the perimeter fencing and gone into the compound. So Abhijit Iyer Mitra, what are we seeing here? There are also celebrations, of course, that are taking place. Videos coming through from Iran and the diaspora that are thrilled and ecstatic at the fact that the top leadership, so Khamenei, the defense minister and the chief of staff, all eliminated. So there's also that happening. Which way is this going to go?
I'd also urge you to look at the massive protests for the regime mourning Ayatollah Khamenei that are happening in Iran as well. And there are people there who are not hijabis. They're modern secular Iranians also mourning. Let's remember that. This is number one. Number two, as far as Pakistan is concerned, you see every event. I've never seen a population more ready to come out and riot than the Pakistanis. Essentially, every international event is like putting bananas in front of a bunch of monkeys. They can't resist themselves, especially when it comes to embassies. This isn't the first time, like a fellow panelist pointed out. In 1979, they attacked the US embassy, burnt it down. And what I want to know is, where is the security around this consulate right now? The external security is meant to be provided by the host country, which is to say Pakistan. After an attack has happened, which you know can inflame tensions, where is the security around it? Where are the, the barricades and so on and so forth, the concentric layers of security that should have been provided? I don't know if you've gone past the American embassy in Delhi today. I'm not in Delhi, I'm in Madras. But my friends are telling me there is significantly ramped up security and barbed wire fencing and things like that that have come up outside there. Now, if Delhi is willing to take that precaution, is sitting in Karachi. Why are they not willing to take the precaution? These things happen in Pakistan when the Pakistan government wants to send a message. Now, what kind of message? I don't know what it is. On one hand, they should be aware.
Yeah. The Americans, this Trump regime has gone and once again warmed up and cozied up to Pakistan at the expense of offending India, and they've done it with complete and utter disregard for warnings that have come from every quarter about doing this. So, Abhijit, I'm glad that the Americans are getting a taste. I'm being very direct here.
Do you remember, Rahul, in your last program when the Americans flipped after Sindoor?
Yes.
I told you I wish the Pakistanis on the Americans and I wish the Americans on the Pakistanis.
You said that. I remember that. Now, is this going to change? Look, you're somebody who understands this. Is this going to change the mood? If there are casualties, American casualties, and we're very sensitive there. I mean, Trump is not the most popular leader, either in his country, and neither is Benjamin Netanyahu. If there are civilian casualties, and if this is today the US Embassy or the US Consulate, what's to say that tomorrow the Israeli Embassy and the Israeli Consulate in another country is not targeted similarly? Or there might even be a hostage crisis. What happens then?
I'm sure there is going to be some kind of incident somewhere, because remember, not all security is equal around the world. This was bound to happen. I think both the Americans and the Israelis know that things like this are going to happen. I'm sure they've taken their own precautions within the compound as well. My real worry is with the external, out of compound security, which host countries provide. Now, you can be fairly certain that in countries like that are extremely developed and therefore have a good security force, like say the Emirates and things like that, or Bahrain, this won't happen. But in the less developed parts of the world, there is a high likelihood that some kind of situation like this will happen. I also want to point out, Rahul, if you noticed yesterday, when Iranian missiles were landing in Qatar, Pakistanis were sitting and cheering the attacks. They were saying, Inshallah miss ho jaye. Inshallah, may the interceptor, not the missile coming in, may the interceptor miss. In Bahrain, of course, there is, Bahrain is a Shia majority ruled by a Wahhabi monarchy. And they have a long history of antagonism with their ruling family out there. So in Bahrain, it is more understandable. But imagine Sunnis living in Qatar, supporting missiles attacking the place where they live, work, earn, send back money. This level of, self-sabotage is really, it's unique to Pakistan. You never find a country more adept at self-sabotage than Pakistan is. And of course, my greatest reassurance is the fact we can never do to Pakistan what the Pakistanis won't do to themselves.
Very good point. Dr. Ranganathan, let's open this up and go a little deeper, because what we saw was a recalibration. There was a period when America had dehyphenated relations between India and Pakistan, and now we're seeing a recalibration under Trump, and he calls that failed general of theirs the best and his favorite field marshal. The failed marshal has become his favorite field marshal. Does Trump understand foreign policy? Does he even understand the situation on the ground here? Does he even know what he's up against in Pakistan? And I just written a piece a few days ago cautioning Sergio Gore, the US ambassador, saying don't make the mistakes of the past. And I said I've written an open letter and it went viral. So I want you to comment on this, because this is something which I think the Americans deserve to know, discover for themselves.
A couple of points out here. When that rogue Kissinger said that to be America's enemy is dangerous, but to be America's friend is fatal, I think he can also include Pakistan in there. And I think Trump, there are two ways of looking at it. One, Trump was wholly ignorant about the history of Pakistan and the way Pakistan behaves, or two, he knew exactly how Pakistan behaves. And I'm inclined to believe, I think the latter, because Pakistan, let's take it, is a vassal state, is at the beck and call of America. And any state that is in that situation, it is up to America to dictate what goes on internally inside Pakistan, because they know very well they control everything that Pakistan is going to do externally. So if this is happening, and if the security that at all times has to be more heightened than anywhere else, any other US consulate around the world, and they let the mob in, you have to accept the fact that this is all premeditated, that this has been done in consultation with the states. What could be the repercussions of this? Number one, America is trying to assuage the situation, maybe put pressure to, as I said, it is in America's complete interest to end this war as soon as possible. In their interest, they will go all out to do that. They are petrified of body bags, and then the entire insinuation of Epstein will, it's already bubbling in the American Washington circles that all this has been done, like what Clinton did, years ago in Somalia. So to kind of put that at bay, America is trying at least 3 or 4 things. Yes, on the ground, but more so diplomatically as well, and also conniving this kind of thing to happen in Pakistan.
Now, let me tell you, viewers, the psychological optics and the impact of this on American diplomats and perhaps even Israeli diplomats in different capitals of the world, especially in those, as Abhijit Iyer Mitra was telling us, not very developed. And Chief, I'll just come out to you in a few moments, and thank you for being so patient. But I'm also going to show you pictures now from Dubai, viewers. The streets are emptied out. It's a ghost town. This is the marina. This is overlooking where all the hotels are. This is the marina where you can see all the big billionaire boats. Not a soul. You can only hear the crows and a couple of birds chirping in the background. This is the psychological impact. This is a city that aspired towards a glitzy modernism, a reinvention away from the oil economy, brought to an absolute halt because of this particular conflict and Iran's very targeted and specific strikes on some of these Gulf states. They have the most to lose, of course, viewers, because they were counting on becoming like the new Londons of the world, for example, attracting the services sector, lowering taxes to get in business, and so on and so forth, to kickstart an evolution away from fossil fuel economy. And that is crumbling here, Tom Cooper. This is going to cost these economies a lot. People won't come in. There's going to be long-term instability, people looking over their shoulders. We know this because Delhi went through that. India went through lots of terrorism by proxies. You couldn't see these enemies. They were in the shadows. Sanjay Suri is there with me also. And this is something that will have to be calibrated. This is the human cost.
Yes, we've seen last year during the Operation Sindor, India lost in a matter of, what was that, not even 4 days, 80 billion or something on revenue, on income. So this is likely to go several times higher than that. And primarily because, well, certain people want to have it their own way and no other way.
Yes, Mr. Fentonez,
Speaking from the perspective of the Qatari, Emirati and Saudi also, I think it is a very important shift because they were allied to the US and they were relying to the US for protecting their best interest. And in a sense, with this operation, it's crystal clear for everyone involved that their protector does not care about them and does not care about the cost. They will have to pay for this combined Israeli and American military operation. And I think it is important because they might be inclined to find in the future other security guarantees, maybe by an alliance between themselves or perhaps even China.
Okay, let me just go straight across to Sanjay Suri. 1 second, Doctor. I'm just going to come back to you in 30 seconds. Sanjay Suri, a simple and straightforward question. I know that you will have restrictions upon you. You can't be speaking about, obviously, the security situation in Israel. I know there is a code, so I'm not even going to take you there. But I'm going to ask you a specific question or two. Why has Iran attacked everyone in the Gulf but Oman? What's happening there in the backdrop? And secondly, most importantly, and this is something that has struck me, what is the appetite really for what is known as a long contingency where war could extend more than 4 or 5 days in Israel?
Well, the first question, Rahul, it's very clear what Iran's tactics are. Iran sees these Arab countries as allies of the US and in fact hosts to the US military. So to an extent, it will attack US military bases in these countries, but then it will attack these countries almost even symbolically. Half a dozen missiles that get through and cause damage, and you see the result already. To hit these countries economically, it cannot destroy everything within, it cannot destroy facilities seriously, but if it hurts the economy, as Iran has managed to do, then that is damage enough. Second, we speak of resilience in Israel. Oh yes, the tenacity is apparently endless. They are in it for as long as it takes, and they are a very hardened, tough lot. Consider simply one fact, Rahul, that will answer your question. The population of Israel is less than 10 million. The population above the age of 18 is about 6 million, and above the age of 18, every Jewish Israeli is not just military trained, has had military deployment. So this is a nation of soldiers. They can take it.
They can take it. So, you know, viewers, now you're having two different reactions coming through. You have the UAE that is on tenterhooks. Viewers, on tenterhooks, because they don't know what's coming from across the ditch, so to speak, from across that strait. And you can see pictures on the right where Pakistan is erupting in fury. It's an irony. The Americans have called their Operation Fury, and the fury is erupting where? In Pakistan, viewers, where the Pakistanis, the great new friends of the United States, are turning on their benefactor, the man who gave them billions of dollars. These Pakistanis are shameless, viewers. They have no loyalty to anyone. They have no loyalty to their own people. They didn't show any loyalty to the Bangla friends across the subcontinent, viewers. They betrayed them. They betray the Iranians. They betray the Afghans. Now they're betraying their only benefactor. Remember, that state is held up by the 3 A's: Allah, America, and the army. One of them they have betrayed. Viewers, let's be honest about that. I never measure my words, because when it comes to Pakistan, you can't measure your words, viewers. But I want to go straight across very quickly, once again, back to Sanjay Suri and also to Anand Ranganathan. Anand Ranganathan, first to you. You were raising your hand, you wanted to make a point.
No, very quickly, look, I speak as a layman. I've already said you're amazing experts on your panel, and Tom is one, and I really latch on to every word he says. But may I slightly disagree with him when he talked about rightly that India lost billions during Operation Sindoor? Well, you know, those billions were lost and then, of course, subsequently recovered. But that's the way stock markets react to every war. You're going to see that tomorrow. I mean, stock markets are going to crash the world over. But the fact of the matter is, today we see after a couple of missile strikes, Dubai has emptied out. We never saw such scenes in Delhi. You know why? Because we have our own indigenous Akash defense system to thank for. And Dr. Ramarao, he constructed something on shoestring budget that intercepted 664 missiles and Pakistani drones in a neutralization rate of 99.4%. So, you know, this is happening in Dubai when you had an overarching ally, America, not able to protect it, whereas we withstood 884 Pakistani missiles and drones, and Indians were freely moving on the streets.
Well, Air Marshal is here with us, and Air Marshal is also going to give his little input. So, Air Marshal, you keep sitting there, please. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. How is this happening? How are all these Gulf states that thought that they were very secure under the American-Israeli umbrella getting reminders every so often, every couple or 3 hours, that they're not safe?
We don't look at this operation which began on 20th February. In my appreciation, the planning must have started after 7th October 23.
Right.
And if you go to 26th October 24, when the massive Israeli strikes took on the key air defense verticals in Iran. Top it up in June 2025, when the US and the Israeli forces struck, called the Operation Rising Lion, they took out the key elements, though they said that they will strike the nuclear facilities, but in short, they crippled. The Israelis and the Americans are threatened, in my appreciation, of the ballistic missiles which the Iranians now possess. The advanced missiles which the Chinese have given them can target even the mainland America. The fissile material, as I was listening, has, with the deal with Oman, the Iranians had agreed that they will, put a stop to it. But that is not the whole aim. The whole aim of this present strike, in my opinion, is twofold. One is to checkmate China. If you see, the January action in Venezuela was related to oil, and this strike also is related to oil. The Chinese get their maximum oil from Venezuela and Iran. So with this strike, what happens now? The prices of oil will shoot up. The supply through Gulf of Hormuz.
Saw that picture we showed you, how the entire Gulf was actually completely log-jammed there. That particular Strait of Hormuz, beyond a point, completely emptied out. And there's a warship there also. What you're seeing, viewers, the mob has entered the US consulate in Karachi. This is the same country that till yesterday was swearing allegiance to America, whose leaders were praising Trump, saying that you are a great man, that you are deserving of the Nobel Prize, that we are going to hypothecate our forces so that you can use our forces to go out there and maintain peace in Gaza. This is that same country, viewers, Pakistan. Look what they've done. There's shots ringing out. There's all sorts of disruption. There are flames. They've entered the entire compound. Is there going to be something dramatic unfolding on the ground there, viewers? This is a dramatic twist playing out. US citizens, I don't know if they're in that consulate building. I just hope they're not, because this is going to turn into something very, very serious if there is a hostage crisis. Tom Cooper, I'm going to come out to you, but I'm also going to walk out and talk a little bit to my colleague Zaka Jacob. Zaka, we've been doing this, of course, complete relay since very early. And what we're now seeing, of course, is something that we didn't expect. This is Pakistan turning its back, or the people of Pakistan turning their backs on America.
You remember all of those talk about, Pakistan being used as some kind of a staging ground for attacking Iran from the east. Clearly, that couldn't have been done because of this. The public sentiment in Pakistan has been in favor of the Ayatollah. But look, Rahul, this is a absolutely consequential moment in the politics of the Middle East. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, for almost 40 years, ruled that country with an iron fist. He's dead. His entire top leadership, his defense minister, the commander of the IRGC, all dead. Well, is it regime change? Well, if this doesn't look like regime change, then I don't know what does.
This was certainly not a preemptive strike. This was much more than that. They went straight in. There was a decapitation that happened. They funneled 40 bombs, JDAMs, whatever you call them. The leadership is wiped out. We don't know what's going to replace it. Trump thinks that this is something going to be more, perhaps more moderate, less radical, but they don't seem to be giving up here.
It could be the exact opposite. You could get an even more hardline regime. The successor for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei could be even more hardline. But Trump doesn't really care about that. He can now claim this as a big victory. Something that 4 or 5 presidents prior to him tried but failed. He can now rightfully turn around and say, I went in, I killed this man. The biggest threat to the United States and its interests in the Middle East is now eliminated. He's been decapitated. He did this with Gaddafi, they've done this with Saddam Hussein, but this is the biggest. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is far bigger than any of these regime change operations that we've seen being done at the behest of America in the Middle East. What replaces Khamenei? What comes next? I think that's going to take some time. That's not going to happen.
Well, what is coming next is something unanticipated, viewers. You're seeing visuals of a US consulate. Now, Zaka, this could be something that's replicated, because if this has the catalyzing effect of actually rousing Muslim world, you could see this happening in other capitals, and not necessarily against US interests. It could even happen against Israeli interests.
Yeah, and that is a concern. Look, the most immediate concern is all of these long-range and ballistic missile attacks that are happening. You're hearing explosions in, Dubai, Doha, in Bahrain. Look, these countries will have to try and bring some pressure to bear, both on America as well as Israel, because look, their civilians are being targeted, airports are being targeted, and that is a significant concern for these countries. Hopefully some pressure will come to bear, but also at the same time, there is absolutely no love lost for the Ayatollah. All of these countries, from Saudi Arabia to the UAE to Bahrain, Qatar, everyone is welcoming the death of this man, because he was fundamentally the biggest destabilizing factor in the Middle East. All of these countries, they've been threatened because of the Ayatollah regime, so no tears are being shed there. Yes, some populations, some crowds will come out. We're seeing that in Pakistan, we're seeing that in some parts of Srinagar as well. But I suspect, Rahul, the principal players in this, Trump, Netanyahu, they're all playing the long game. And the long game means that they know that they have to, go on with this operation, ensure that, Iran exhausts its list of ballistic and long-range missiles, because there's a finite number. A conservative number is 2,000, a not-so-conservative number is close to 10,000. They will have to exhaust it at some point. There will have to be a new government or a new head, a new supreme leader in Iran. Trump just needs to play until that time, but he will now go down. Whether or not it will have consequences domestically in the US, I don't know. Clearly, he doesn't want to get entangled in a long-drawn war.
A quagmire would be.
He's not going to get stuck here for months or years. This is not going to be Iraq of 2003. He's looking for a quick exit. He's found a big victory, decapitated, cut the head of the snake, as they say. He's cut the head of the snake. What replaces it, like I said, is going to be long-drawn, it's going to be hard, but that's not Trump's problem.
But what's going to be the off-ramp in case, and I just wish this doesn't happen, in case there are reprisals, and there are reprisals against US citizens in other parts of the world, and this sort of goes sideways, as they say, is there an appetite for Mr. Trump to continue? Because obviously there will be then expectations of him to retaliate, to teach the Iranians once again a lesson of their lives as he talks. There will be a lot of pressure if there is any inconsequential or even consequential damage to American lives.
Look, as long as American lives are not lost, I think Trump will be fine. His MAGA base itself is against these long-drawn wars. That's part of the appeal. That's part of why he came to office. You remember people like Charlie Kirk were against this war that's been going on in Gaza, almost never-ending war that's been going on in Gaza. And this is part of Trump's base. So Trump has no appetite for a long-drawn war. He's not going to get entangled. And you asked about the off-ramp. This is exactly the off-ramp. He's got the victory that he wanted. He can tomorrow morning address the country and the world, his new State of the Union, and say, I did what Obama could not, what Biden could not, what Clinton could not, what Bush could not. I went in there and I cut the head of the snake, and that's his victory.
Well, will he take that? Will he take that? We've been covering this, of course, viewers, and we're going to hand over to Zaka in just a few moments, but I'm just going to take you through the newsroom since the morning. Very, very active. Shivani, why don't you come out to me? And of course, Siddhant, who's been tracking the Ministry of External Affairs and the Indian reaction and all the politics. Shivani, this is turning out to be an end game that we didn't envisage. Now, it's 24 hours plus. The Iranians don't look as if they're softening. There are reprisals happening in other parts of the world. You can see what's happening in Doha. Can you see those pictures there on your screens?
Fresh visuals of strikes that have taken place in Doha. We're bringing you visuals from Karachi. But can I just say, the US and the Israeli army had already said at the start of this offensive that this is going to take at least a week. So they have a week-long plan. What happens beyond that, we don't know. But can I also tell you, even as we were keeping a watch on what's happening in Karachi, we had a few visuals come in from the Iranian Culture Center at Tilak Mark in the national capital. We saw a few people arriving in autos and getting off there. Ladies with their headscarves, etc. Some Iranian cleric also seemed to be going inside. So I don't know whether we could see a repeat of some sort of a protest. If not what we are seeing in Karachi, but maybe some assembly outside the Iranian Culture Center in New Delhi to also voice their opposition.
Well, what you're seeing on your screens, viewers, are those pictures coming out of Doha. I'm telling you, the Middle East is looking over its shoulder. We just showed you pictures from Dubai, completely a ghost town. That's going to cost it economically, as I'm saying, at a period of transition. Siddhant, what's the response coming out now from the Indian government? We had one statement. This is a sort of statements expressing serious concern about the situation. There has been a decapitation strike. We have historical ties, civilizational connect with Iran. We haven't got a comment really on that development.
Well, that's right, Rahul. In fact, there are more than 2,000 Indian medical students stranded in Iran. There are more than, if I'm not mistaken, 9 to 10,000 Indians in Iran at present. In fact, I have managed to speak to many Indian medical students there. They are sending me their sound bites, urging Indian government for evacuation, etc. They're saying that their passport is with the university. They cannot move out. They're writing letters. Even their association here in Kashmir has written to EM S. Jaishankar for the evacuation. But right now, it looks like that it's going to be very difficult for the Indian government to evacuate students from Iran.
These visuals from Doha, I just want to give our viewers an update. These are visuals of thick smoke that are erupting from the Doha's industrial area. This is earlier today on Sunday. Multiple explosions rocking Doha for a second day. These are Iranian-launched missiles. Obviously, the target is the US's Al Udeid air base in Qatar, but a lot of the industrial and civic spaces being targeted as well.
Well, Oman is the one country that hasn't seen any action, and there are lots of questions being asked as to why. Here is what is also another aspect of this. The airspace, Chetan, you've been showing us this.
I just wanted to show you that most of the traffic passes through this area.
Yes.
And now look at this airspace. This is completely wiped out, blank, nothing, zero plane in this area. Also,
so
I wanted
all
to
just flying over the Caspian and the Black Sea corridor.
Yes, and almost across India, around 440 flights were postponed. I also wanted to show you across this image from the Israeli commentary Twitter handle. This shows you the complex of Ayatollah Khamenei before and after.
This is the before and after. This is a dramatic picture. Just go back to the before.
This
there it
shows
is. That's
you
what it looked like. Orchards in the middle, beautiful garden,
and
there,
this
massive
is what
hole, a crater.
The bunker buster drones can do. So this, as per them, this is what the
Mossad commentary is. Okay. Well, let me just hand you back to Zaka, because there is a pivotal moment now, as he was also saying, in this particular conflagration. Zaka.
All right, we're seeing heavy smoke that's billowing out from the Jebel Ali port in Dubai. It's one of the busiest ports in the world right now, and certainly one of the busiest in that part of the world. The Jebel Ali port, it's not a direct hit. What we're given to understand is one of the berths there caught fire because of debris that resulted from an aerial interception. So a lot of these attacks, these ballistic missile and long-range missile attacks by Iran, are also being intercepted by all of these countries, whether these countries are Qatar or the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. A range of US allies in that region have been attacked by these long-range fire, these ballistic missiles. Look at these various visuals that have been coming in through the day, through the last 5 or 6 hours. These are retaliatory strikes by the Iranian IRGC and by the Iranian army. They are vowing to take revenge for the assassination, for the decapitation of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. These are pictures that are being shared widely from Dubai, from Doha, from Qatar, from other parts of the Middle East, all of which have been attacked in the last 24 hours. And now Iran, like I said, is vowing an even bigger retaliation, both on Israel and American interests in the wider region. Whether or not these countries will bring pressure to bear on America and Israel to try and pipe down. They've got the victory that they wanted. They've removed the man at the top, who is the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now, let's pipe down, let's try and de-escalate, let's try and salvage the situation. Whether or not America and Israel will, listen to that advice or take that bait, we don't know. But Trump is someone we know who doesn't like getting entangled in long-drawn wars. Part of the reason why his MAGA base loves him and why he came to power is because of the fact that he doesn't want to get entangled in these long-drawn foreign wars. So let's try and see if we can get some of our guests to talk about this. There are now attacks that are happening across the wider region. Much of it has been intercepted. Much of it has been stopped. There aren't much civilian fatalities, as it were, in Dubai or Doha or other places. I want to go across, though, to Sanjay Suri, who's joining us live from Tel Aviv, where, too, all through the last 24 hours or so, there have been air raid sirens that have been going off, shelter-in-place advisories that are going off, and, of course, you have a national app there, Sanjay, What's been happening over these last 3-4 hours since daybreak there in Tel Aviv? Are the streets deserted? Has economic activity come to a standstill? And what is the trajectory as the Israelis see it for this war that has now lasted a little over 24 hours?
Well, Tel Aviv has been hit. There was a missile attack on central Tel Aviv overnight. A residential block was hit. A very large number of people were injured, and we have reports, unconfirmed yet, that one person has been killed in that attack and a great deal of damage has been caused. So this is what Tel Aviv has begun to live with, and we all know that in the June war of last year, 28 people were killed in attacks on Tel Aviv by Iranian ballistic missiles that got through. So there is no foolproof defense, and the most sophisticated defense that we have in place from Israel and from the US, the Gerald Ford is here supporting protection of Israel, is not foolproof at all. So there is rising concern here about where this will lead to. People, of course, are holding their nerve. They're all practically military trained. They're prepared for this. But the danger is not over. Tel Aviv is not out of it. Israel certainly is within range of the ballistic missiles and it's been hit already. The pattern last time was that as the war progressed, more and more missiles got through, so nobody is taking this lightly. And of course, as you were saying, it suits Trump that this should end quickly rather than last long. That is not certain. The killing of Khamenei is a dramatic and instant success for this attack. But that's not to say that he will not be replaced. It will all depend upon the tenacity of the regime within Iran. And we saw in October last year, Israel killed a number of military leaders from Iran. They were just replaced. So if these people who have been killed are all replaced and a council takes over in place of Khamenei and the same policies continue, this could drag on whether Trump likes that or not.
All right, Sanjay Suri, for the moment, thank you very much for joining us. There have been multiple hits across the wider Middle East region, from Qatar to the United Arab Emirates. Now the latest that we're getting, an Iranian drone has hit an industrial area in the UAE just this morning, and that's caused a major fire. This is in the UAE. There have been multiple explosions across the Emirates since the last 6 or 7 hours in retaliation to the killing of the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. We've heard explosions happen in Doha as well. So far, though, there is no reports of any fatalities. Some people have been injured. A couple of people in the UAE is what we're given to understand, even a couple of people in Doha. But so far, no fatalities. These are the latest pictures that you're seeing of a major fire at an industrial area after a drone, an Iranian drone, hit an industrial park in the United Arab Emirates. I want to bring in our guests as well on this, because this is how the story is going to sort of transverse over the next few days. There's going to be retaliatory strikes across the wider Middle East. Let me bring in here in our studios Tom Cooper, military analyst, Adrian Fontanes, military analyst and historian. We're also joined in a special broadcast by Mr. Joe Brown from I-24 News in Israel. I'll also bring in a moment Air Marshal retired Sanjeev Kapoor and Abhijit Iyer Mitra from the IPCS. But Tom Cooper, let me start with you. What do you make of how long these retaliatory strikes will continue? And the longer they continue, the less propensity there is in Doha and Dubai to continue with this war.
Well, I would expect this Iran to continue these operations for at least a week, if not longer, as long as it has enough missiles to continue them. Which means, in turn, depending on the rate of fire, it could probably go on for some 5 or 6 weeks. The question is rather how long can US allies and Israel hope to continue wasting their own interceptors to intercept incoming Iranian missiles. So from the Iranian point of view, they are preparing themselves for 25 years for this kind of a conflict, and now they are operating along well-prepared plans.
But isn't it also a fact that Iran has a limited arsenal? I mean, conservative estimates say there's about 2,000 to 3,000 long-range ballistic missiles. If you were not putting a conservative estimate, it would go up to 10,000. At some point, they will exhaust this.
Yes, that is sure, absolutely. But the point is this limited contingent of long-range or medium-range, actually, ballistic missiles is what they are using against Israel only. On the other hand, they have many more thousands of short-range missiles. And this is what they are using against to strike, for example, Gulf Arab states and even okay, Saudi Arabia not, but possibly also Jordan. So that means they can go on like this for quite long period of time. I'm estimating this at least some 5 or 6 weeks, because usual experience of the last 20 years is that such wars, such missile exchanges are lasting some 5 or 6 weeks. And correspondingly, this is what they were already trying to do with Hezbollah in Lebanon, to make them capable of fighting such a war for 5 or 6 weeks. And they are certainly trying to do the same with their own capability vis-a-vis Israel.
Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor is also here. I mean, everyone was expecting this. As President Trump put it, an armada was being moved to the Middle East. He had 2 aircraft carriers, dozens of fighter jets, refuelers. So this was on expected lines. They've got a big victory with the elimination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And given Trump's propensity for not getting entangled in long-drawn foreign wars, do you reckon he will take this as a victory, claim victory, and then say, we're now giving Iran an off-ramp to stop this retaliatory strikes?
Could easily happen, yes, that he declares...
Sorry, that was the Air Marshal, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
The airstrikes must have been planned well in advance.
Yes.
And like I just covered a little while ago, the major damage, in my opinion, was done in October 24 when Israelis struck Iranian targets. They took out the key air defense installations, their ballistic missile dumps. The softening blow came in June 2025 when the Rising Lion, the 3 nuclear facilities which the B-2 bomber struck along with Israeli targets. So they had weakened the air defense and generally the air fighting capabilities. But the threat now came when the Chinese started to supply long-range missiles to Iranians. Now these missiles were the whole talks in Oman between, as a mediator, along with the nuclear was on containment of these ballistic missiles which the Iranians have and have possessed now. So the Israeli targets and the American targets were under threat if the Iranians so decided, and if they decided to put a nuclear warhead, it would have been, a conflict of a different scale.
Okay.
So preempting this, the Israelis and the Americans have stuck. And most important factor, in my opinion, which very few people are talking, is about energy control.
Okay, we'll just get to that in 1 second. I want to show on a map of the region where all in Iran the Americans and the Israelis have struck and where the Iranians have retaliated. Yes, it's these ballistic missiles, these long-range missiles. A lot of them also happen to be these drone attacks. Like, for example, this attack in Doha, it was brought about by a drone attack. And remember, the Iranians have been supplying the high-intensity, low-cost Shahid drones to the Russians, for example, during the course of this last 4 years in the Ukraine war. But look at the number of US bases in the wider region which have all been a target in the last 24 hours, from the Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait. The US 5th Fleet is stationed in Bahrain. It's the largest station that they have outside of the continental United States. That too, there was a hit by one of these low-cost drones. The Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, which was struck back in June of last year as well. No damages in terms of personnel loss. Again, the Al Udeid Air Base was also struck. The Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, again a smaller base, but nonetheless an important one as far as the United States is concerned. We've been hearing reports of explosions as far as Riyadh as well, which is, over 1,000 miles from Iran. So Iran has been targeting many of these places. Of course, Erbil, which has just recently been attacked, which is a US base in Iraq. So these are the wider sort of bases that they have. America has more than a dozen bases across the wider Middle East. And the important concern here is not just to protect the American assets, but also over the last 24 hours, we're seeing civilian targets, whether they are airports, industrial areas, all being targeted. And those countries now will have to bring some sort of pressure to bear on both Israel and the United States to wind this up quickly, because they wouldn't have bargained for retaliatory strikes by Iran on their civilian populations. I want to go across to Joe Brown of... All right, let's get one more graphic fired on who are the people, the top leadership of Iran that's been eliminated. The biggest, the head of the snake, as they put it, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, the man who's been ruling Iran with an iron fist for the last almost 40 years, eliminated. Ali Shamkhani, senior advisor for security affairs and the secretary of the Defense Council, he has been eliminated as well. Then you have the critical man, the commander of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, Mahmoud Pakpur, he has been eliminated as well. In fact, he was having a meeting with the Supreme Leader. Both were eliminated in the same compound is what we are given to understand. Mohammad Shirazi, who's the head of the military bureau, he has been eliminated as well. The defense minister, the former defense minister, Aziz Nazardai, he has also been eliminated. So the entire top leadership, the security leadership, the political leadership, the spiritual leadership of Iran have been eliminated. Abdul Rahim Musavi, the chief of the Iranian army, he has been eliminated as well. So what we are basically looking at is a almost wholesale decapitation of the top security, political and religious leadership of Iran. And now it is up to the new leadership to decide who will take over the reins of the country, the Supreme Council, the Security Council, and of course, how will they lead the country into the future? One notable exception has been the president, Masoud Pezeshkian, but there are also reports that he's been sidelined. But I want to go across to Joe Brown from I-24 News from Israel. Joe, what is the situation in Israel right now? We were talking to our colleague Sanjay Suri, who's there in Tel Aviv as well. Multiple air raid warnings, shelters in place. What's going on in Israel? What is the mood out on the street? And what's the word you're picking in from the government and from the Israeli Defense Forces? How long do they want to keep this operation going?
Well, Sanjeev, probably like a lot of people in Israel, didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Over the last 24 hours or so, people have been going to the bomb shelters, I would say more than 10 times. There's been constant barrages coming from Iran, and often you get a first warning, and that will give you 10 minutes until the first proper siren starts, after which you'll get 90 seconds in order to make it to the shelter. And for the one last night in which there was a missile that hit a building in Tel Aviv, in which one person in their 40s was killed, this was around about 15 minutes away from where I live. So I heard the building shake, I heard a loud bang. I went over to see it, and I remember in the 12-day war last June, there was a similar strike in a residential area, also in Tel Aviv. And in that case, the Iranians used cluster munitions as well as the ballistic missiles. This means that the missile will kind of like separate and hit various different targets. And I believe that was what I saw today. I haven't got that confirmed, but just going around the area, everything within a 100-yard radius had some kind of damage. There was buildings in which there was glass on the floor. There were windows that had been completely shattered. I didn't go into like the part where it was a direct hit because there was still a recovery going underway from the Israeli police and ambulance services. But the people here, they are remaining resilient. They believe that they are going to last as long as it will take, according to the Israeli government, telling I-24 News. This will last anywhere between a couple of days and a week, but this can also last even longer. The 12-day war, people didn't think that would last as long as it did, but it lasted, as the name states, 12 days. Yeah. And people are preparing for any eventuality. From Israel's perspective, it's great so far. The leadership has been completely destroyed, as you were showing on the graphic before, especially Ali Khamenei. But on top of that, it's worth noting that the Iranians have been preparing for this for decades now. They know Israel's capabilities. They know how quickly Israel managed to get air superiority in the conflict last year. It took even quicker this time, and people are preparing that it will be a relatively long fight, and after the leadership gets taken out, there'll be someone to replace them, and that's not what Israel wants. Israel wants the entire...
Okay, Joe, just give me a moment. We're getting more breaking news, and this is again coming from Israel. The IDF has now released the latest footage of Air Force aircraft, the Israeli Air Force aircraft taking off for an attack. More than 1,200 munitions were dropped by the fighter jets of the IDF over the last 24 hours. You can see this this footage that's been released by the IDF. Of course, the faces of the personnel have been blurred for their identity protection. You can see these pictures have been put out by the IDF. You can see them, engineers, technicians hard at work. And then, of course, in the final shots, you can see the pilot on board the fighter jet sort of taking off. Again, like I said, their identities are being blurred and hidden for security reasons. We also don't know the location of where these fighter jets have been taking off from, but at least 1,200 munitions have been dropped by the Israeli Air Force over the last 24 hours in various targets across the length and breadth of Iran. I also want to go across to Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit, just war game this for us over the next few days. The biggest prize has already been got, which is the head of the snake that has been cut off. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is dead. Given that and Trump's sort of lack of interest in long-drawn wars, how do you see this playing out over the next few days?
Netanyahu has said that we should be patient. I take that as a sign that this is going to be, somewhat long drawn at any rate. The second statement we've heard from the Israelis is that they are eliminating the past, present, and future leadership. That's always been a problem. If you eliminate the upper echelons of the leadership, it goes down to the colonel and junior level people who are usually much younger and usually much more radicalized as well. Now, unless the Americans and Israelis have a plan where a deep mole is in the line of succession, I don't see Iran capitulating in any form or way. If anything, it will get even more regressive and revanchist. Number one. Number two, let us assume for a minute that the regime change plan is still on. I fail to see how it's actually going to happen without boots on the ground. There have been examples of, say, getting Serbia to change course over Kosovo purely through an air campaign. There has been Libya, where a government was changed by a Western air campaign, but Libyan ground rebels. I don't see how that's going to happen out here, given, and you know this very well, Zaka, that, one AK-47 with, say, about 10 to 15 cartridges can kill hundreds of protesters when required. If you remember, the West imposed no-fly zones in northern Iraq and southern Iraq. There were limits on the number of tanks also that could be accumulated out there. And Saddam Hussein still managed to crush both the Kurdish rebellion in the north and the Shia rebellion in the south, and the Marsh Arab rebellion as well. So I'm not seeing how that plays out. My real worry is, with the civilian targeting that has happened.
Yeah.
Sure, a lot of it we can say was missiles gone wrong. But the strike on the Burj Al Arab, the Burj Khalifa, the Fairmont Palm Jumeirah, the high rise in Manama and things like that, notice it's a pattern. High income group, high rise buildings being hit. It shows desperation at some level. It's a use it or lose it kind of a dilemma that they face. Now, what if somebody then decides that they're going to put they don't have a nuclear bomb, but say a dirty bomb, lots of dirty radioactive waste into a warhead and detonate it over the interception range, right? What happens then?
Yeah.
Are you going to push them to that level of desperation? I'm cautious. We've never seen the Iranians target civilians in the Gulf. They keep targeting Israeli civilians. Let's just say I'm not as optimistic as my American and Israeli friends are on
all right.
outcomes.
Okay, I want to go into the studio and I'd want to ask Tom Cooper to sort of walk out with us in terms of, how this whole story plays out. Tom, if you could just join us here. One of the points that Abhijit was also making, we are not accustomed to civilians being attacked like this by Iran, whether it's in Bahrain, whether it is in Qatar, whether it is in the United Arab Emirates, and high-value targets are being attacked. The Burj Al Arab, the Burj Al Khalifa. This also has a lot of tourists, folks who go there. The Palm Jumeirah has been attacked. Clearly, does that show a sign of desperation by Iran, or is Iran trying to send out a signal to both America and Israel that you can't continue this forever? Your allies, your friends in the region will stop you from continuing this.
I don't think it's either. It's simply the operators of the weapons do not think about high-rise buildings. So they are trying to hit something behind them, fail to take into account the high-rise tall buildings in between, and the weapon is simply flying into this obstacle on its way.
But civilians, you don't think are being deliberately targeted? These are all civilian targets.
No, because principal aim of Iranians is to disable the enemy military capability, not to terrorize civilians. I know that there are decades of indoctrination that the Iranians are always targeting civilians and they are terrorists and so on and so on. But this is actually quite a much more complex topic, to put it diplomatically.
So how do you see countries like the UAE or Bahrain or other countries reacting to this in a way that, look, their civilians are under threat. We're seeing multiple civilian areas being targeted in the last 24 hours. What are the conversations they are having with the Trump administration or with the Netanyahu administration right now?
Well, they are probably trying on one side to restrain Trump from continuing this operation. They are trying to prevent him from launching it in the first place without success. Otherwise, they cannot really join a US-Israeli aggression on Iran. They can't do that publicly because this would cost them a lot at home.
All right. Tom, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us. I want to get Rahul Shivshankar also into this conversation. So, Rahul, one of the points that one of our previous speakers was making is that the entire top leadership of Iran has now been eliminated. If it goes to a second round, which it has to now, they could end up being far more hardened and far more radical.
So, this is a great spin-off point, because I was just looking at the New York Times and they've done a fabulous sort of, I don't want to use the word family tree, but they've done a sort of a big tree here, graphic representation. So let me just talk you through some of this. Obviously, we have right on top Ali Khamenei, who is, of course, no more. He's been killed. Then you had this inner circle, and you've just had Ali Ralujani once again issuing démarche, really, of sorts to the United States and to Israel. Ali Shamkhani, no one knows. He's the head of National Defense Council. We don't know if he's alive or dead. Israelis are claiming that he is no longer there. There's Masoud Pezeshkian, who is somebody who's playing a role in the shadows. Yeah. They've also set up this 3-person committee now that's going to look after the transition and the decision-making. There's Mohammad Pakpur and Amir Nasirazeh. He's gone. This is what we've been told. The commander-in-chief of the IRGC, we don't know where he is. But if you really look down here is a bunch of other people. And these are the people that one sort of now is obviously looking at closer, because some of these individuals are obviously playing a role. Now, it's a very loosely created structure, and I think it's been devolved in a way that over time, if there are kills like this, there'll be redundancy. So you can see a huge number of others. And if you look at this, article, it's very interesting because it gives you a moment by moment how the CIA helped pinpoint a gathering of Iranian leaders when Israel struck. This is really something very, very interesting, because we knew this offensive was going to take place. Why would the Ayatollah be holed up in a compound which is associated with him? No one quite knows the answer to that. Was there a tip-off? Yeah. So you don't really know what led to. Maybe they were all thinking that the talks were going smoothly, that Trump was, the phrase, TACO, Trump always chickens out, this is bluster. But it's quite clear they were caught off guard, and this was not a preemptive strike. So obviously something changed in the calculation, where they said, let's just go for the jugular. And the point that you were making, now he's got his off-ramp. Yeah. He's got this bragging right to say that, look, I've cut off, as you were saying, the head of the serpent. But I don't know if the Iranians are going to fold. And as I said, if there is, and look at these pictures. I mean, I'm astounded by these pictures. This is, these were the tiger economies, the new economies. They had transitioned. They were moving away from fossil fuels, oil. Lots of expats were coming in. They were moving into the services sector, the financial sector. They were trying to copy the Singapore and the London model. And this whole renaissance is premised on stability.
Exactly.
And we were told that, all of that sort of radicalism and all of that doesn't come into the equation here. But these people are now going to constantly look over their shoulder, because the Iranian regime might disintegrate. But what does it disintegrate into? Does it become a shadow regime that is going to continue to export terror through proxies? And if that's the case, then we know the experience because India has been bled by Pakistan for now decades altogether. If that begins to happen, this Middle East pivot that these countries were hoping would sort of take them into the next century might be stalled. I'm not saying it'll be stopped, but it'll be stalled and it could be catastrophic. And I don't know how that's going to work into the larger calculus because then over a period of time, people are going to turn around and tell Israel and the Americans that, look, you were responsible for this instability which is now left out open to restive populations who want more once the oil begins to dry up. So this is a long-term game. I think the Iranians are playing this with a view to try and embroil America and Israel into a quagmire.
Yeah, and that is, I think, exactly what Trump wants to avoid. He doesn't have propensity for getting stuck in long, endless wars. America was the main security guarantor in the Middle East, whether it's for Saudi Arabia, the UAE, tens of allies that America has, Jordan, Bahrain. America was underpinning and underwriting their security. Now, if their civilians are being targeted, and fortunately, there are no reports of any fatalities in any of these countries, but if their civilians are being targeted, you can be rest assured the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is right now talking to Trump administration officials and saying, get the Iranians to stop doing this. Get the Iranians to stop targeting our civilians. You can be rest assured the president of the UAE is having those same conversations. India also has skin in the game, and I want to ask Siddhant, my colleague here, there are 9 million Indian expatriates who are living and working in the region. Siddhant, what are you picking up from the MEA? Is there any additional assistance that they're giving to Indian expats who are living and working there?
Well, that's right, Zaka. There are 9 million Indians living in the region, and the top priority for Indian government is safety and security of these Indians. In fact, Satish is joining us live from Kuwait right now. Satish जी, Zaka हैं यहाँ पर मेरे साथ. बताइए इस वक्त कुवैत में क्या स्थिति है? बताया जा रहा है कि कुवैत एयरपोर्ट, दोहा एयरपोर्ट सब बंद है और इंडियंस वहाँ पे फंसे हुए हैं. थोड़ा विस्तार से बताइए, हम लाइव हैं इस वक्त दर्शकों के लिए.
जी नमस्कार. जहाँ तक सूचना मिल रही है कि आज मॉर्निंग में 8 बजे एक सायरन बजे थे सानवी रेजुलेशन एरिया में, जिससे कि लो वेव के, जिससे कि लोगों में थोड़ा डर का माहौल था. इसके अलावा कल 10th क्लास के सीबीएसई के एग्जाम्स भी हैं. बच्चों में थोड़ी चिंता का है कि एग्जाम्स होंगे या नहीं होंगे, क्योंकि ऑलमोस्ट जितने स्कूल से वो आज बंद है और सीनियर क्लास का ऑनलाइन का अरेंजमेंट किया गया है. और सुपरमार्केट और फूड में तो अभी इस प्रकार प्रॉपर इन्वेंट्री है, इस प्रकार का कोई ज्यादा चिंता की बात नहीं है. पर जैसा कि आपने बताया कि माइनर सा एयरपोर्ट को डैमेज हुआ था और इसके बाद सुबह मॉर्निंग में एक फ्लाइट को ऑपरेट किया था.
अच्छा, एक फ्लाइट ऑपरेट हुई है कुवैत एयरपोर्ट से?
जी, सुबह 5 बजे कुवैत के जो ऑपरेशनल है एयरपोर्ट के वो हो चुके हैं. और जो अटैक हुआ था वो कुवैत के जो टर्मिनल T2, जो एक नया अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन टर्मिनल था, उस पर ये माइनर सा अटैक हुआ है. बाकी कुवैत के ऑलमोस्ट जो प्रॉपर्टीज है वो सिक्योर थे. और जो बेस और जो आधार बनाया गया है जो यूएस आर्मी कैंप को, रेजिडेंशियल एरिया अभी तक पूरी तरह से सुरक्षित है.
Okay. Thank you, Satish ji. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That was an Indian expat that you were hearing live on the air from Kuwait. There have been multiple explosions heard in Kuwait as well. So the fact that these civilian areas are being targeted in these Gulf Arab allies of the United States, how much pressure will they bring to bear on the Trump administration to quickly wrap this up, to get the Iranians to come back to the negotiating table, agree to a nuclear deal, and then put an end to this war? Those conversations are happening right now, even as we speak. It's also a sign of desperation by the Iranian regime. I think Abhijit Iyer Mitra was making that point. They are absolutely sending out desperate signals to the Americans and to the Israelis also to wrap this up quickly. The question is, will Trump take that big political victory, that big political moral victory of the elimination of a man who has threatened death to America for the last almost 40 years? Will he take that as an off-ramp and say, I'm claiming victory, it's now up to the people of Iran to decide who they want to get this to be led by for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So is that a political victory that Trump is going to take? We'll try and talk about all of that in a moment. We have our guest, Air Marshal, is here with us as well. Air Marshal, again, I come back to that point that Abhijit was making, which is a very valid one, that if Arab civilians in many of America's allied countries in the Middle East are being targeted, that is not something that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia or the President of the UAE has too much propensity to defend or to continue, because we've not seen anything of this sort in the Gulf for these last many 30, 40, 50 years.
United Arab Emirates and the complete region has been marketed in the last few years, a few decades, as one of the safest places in the world. Be it investments, be it trade, be it commerce, be it all kind of tourism and hub and spoke concepts. Dubai and the adjacent areas have been transformed by the money that has come in. But now with the strikes at these areas in last 24 hours, they are waking up to a new reality, a reality which the locals had never anticipated. Iran, in its desperation, because the Arab nations have provided safe haven and the basis to the Americans for a very long time. On the sidelines, the Iranians have conveyed their displeasure for the same to all the Gulf countries, but to no avail. Now, this is an opportunity for Iran to convey through military means that we have been telling you for years together that we do not like your bases to be used against us.
Okay.
Under American pressure, the Gulf countries have provided all support, and that includes Pakistan. Now look at the irony.
Want to know what's the best way to grow? Let's go. Go farther. So far ahead that the competition
was used by the drones for strikes last evening. And the same regime is propelling up the riots in Karachi against the consulate. So on one hand, the security that was being discussed to be provided around the vicinity of that consulate, which is a state responsibility, was missing. But on the other hand, you open the doors for the same oppressor and to say that, okay, please use my facilities.
To hit
and
at
to
your
a common
enemy.
man,
Okay.
they will say...
Just give me a moment, Marshall. Getting another piece of breaking news. There are strikes that have been continuing for the last 24 hours across the Middle East region. Dubai has been badly hit. One of the people who've been stranded there in Dubai is ace Indian shuttler PV Sindhu. She's been stuck in Dubai over the last 24 hours. She's in fact spoken exclusively to CNN News 18 and reacted on this story. Let's just listen in to what she had to say.
Firstly, thank you all who have been reaching out and checking on us. And well, I was transiting from Bangalore, where I train and live full time now, to Birmingham in the UK to compete the All England Championships. And once our flight landed in Dubai, events beyond our control began to unfold. And shortly after, the airspace also was shut down. And the last few hours have been extremely tense. We could hear the sounds of interceptions overhead, and a few hours later there was explosion very close to where we were holed up at Dubai airport. My coach was barely about 100 meters away where it happened, and had to quickly move out of the area. Experiencing something like this in such close quarters is truly, it truly shakes the very, foundation you're built on. And you never expect these things to happen to you or anyone close to you. But sometimes situations are beyond your control, what they do. So, I feel incredibly blessed to have such a strong and united team around me, and everyone had stayed calm, supported one another, and shown real strength during a very frightening situation. And currently we are safe now and have been moved to a more secure place. I'm deeply grateful to the Dubai authorities and the staff at Dubai airport also, who's been incredibly and tireless in ensuring everyone's safety. We're also truly grateful to Emirates and the airport staff for being incredibly kind and supportive with with so many passengers stranded, their hands were understandably tied, but they showed genuine empathy and care towards everyone going through this difficult experience. And, I would also like to, sincerely thank the Indian High Commission in Dubai for their extraordinary support. And when I reached out requesting assistance, the High Commissioner immediately responded and on high super priority notice deployed his team to help us. They have been incredibly, supportive, not just to me, but to everyone stranded here, ensuring, safety, coordination, and constant communication during a very difficult time. And anyone currently stuck or needing assistance is encouraged to reach out using the official helpline numbers shared by the High Commission. And of course, we are truly blessed to have such a sensitized and incredible team looking out for Indian citizens here. And for now, we're trying to get some rest and remain hopeful as the situation continues to unfold. So thank you all for your prayers, messages, and concern. Well, it truly means a lot to all of us. And stay safe.
I want to go across to Shivani, who's spoken to PV Sindhu. She's been stuck there for the last 24 hours en route to a tournament, as you heard her say a moment ago, in Birmingham. Shivani, what is the latest? Will she be able to make it for that tournament? Of course, we've been talking about the number of Indian expats who live and work in the Middle East. But specifically in the case of PV Sindhu, what are you hearing? Have there been conversations with the Indian government? Does the Indian government plan to evacuate some of these individuals from these areas, from these regions?
So what we know right now, Zaka, is that they're safe. As you could see in the video, they're in a hotel right now. And the current situation is that the team is safe. They have been helped by the Dubai airport authorities, the Dubai authorities, but also, of course, the consulate services there. Sindhu thanking them for the effort that has been made, because they were at the airport transiting to Birmingham for the All England Championship when actually their flight had landed first in Dubai. And I think they were going to take on a connecting one to later. And then that's when the airspace is closed. Initially, they could hear a lot of sounds above, but then there was very close to where they were at the Dubai airport, an explosion as well. And we have been bringing those visuals of the one strike that has taken place close to the airport or in the airport compound. So we, currently across the sports world, there is a lot of uncertainty. We don't know exactly when this airspace will open and when they can proceed further, or will they have to come back to India? Would the Indian government would have to be involved? I think tournaments will also look at maybe re-looking at some of their tournament dates. They might be pushed back a little bit, because this is not just a scenario for an Indian team traveling. There would have been teams from many countries traveling to this particular tournament, but also other tournaments that will start or are going on across the world. We do know, for example, that ICC, which is headquartered in Dubai, is also looking at what their staff is going to do, many of whom are in India currently for the World Cup, etc. So situation is very dynamic, but safety, priority is safety currently in Dubai while they are holed up in Dubai, and then we wait and see when the airspace opens up.
All right, Shivani, many thanks for that. Let's also go across to this other piece of breaking news now. Lots of curiosity as to how the Americans were able to pinpoint the compound where the Supreme Leader Khamenei was holed up in and hit precisely and eliminate him and some of the other generals and top military leaders who he was holed up with in that building. Now, this is the other breaking story that we're reporting. The US media are reporting the CIA helped pinpoint a gathering of top Iranian leaders. This intel was then shared with the Israelis, and it's the Israelis who struck that particular compound where the Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was having a meeting with his top military leadership. And that is when the Israelis pounced in and hit that particular compound. Let me go across to Aman, who has more details on this. Aman, so clearly the Iranian intel seemed to have been compromised. The Americans knew precisely down to which building the Supreme Leader was holed up inside.
Morning on his post on Truth Social had in fact pointed to this, said we had pinpointed intelligence and we had highly sophisticated tracking systems. That is what Donald Trump had said, but now the New York Times is putting out more details of how exactly this strike was carried out. it says that CIA had been doing this surveillance on Khamenei for months. They were tracking his movements, his pattern, where does he go, how what time does he leave, which is the places he frequents. And based on this pinpointed intelligence, the New York Times is now saying that the months of CIA surveillance zeroed in on the exact location of Khamenei. High fidelity intelligence confirmed his presence at a top level meeting that morning, on the morning of Saturday. And that is why the original plan was to strike at night. But the New York Times is reporting, but that plan was changed to early morning because of this pinpointed intelligence. What they are saying, that the attack was rescheduled to Saturday morning to exploit this real-time intelligence window. So again, it's showing the hallmark of CIA, that they are able to zero in on exact location of such high-value targets. They also said that a decision, New York Times is saying, is taken jointly by Washington and Tel Aviv. They had a joint operation, and it was a joint decision to strike in the morning. What more are we being told is that the CIA had clear intelligence that the meeting included Iran's most powerful military leadership, and that Khamenei will be present at this particular meeting. That is the intelligence that they had. Israeli fighter jets have taken off at 6 a.m. Israel time for this particular strike. That is what also NYT is reporting. And exactly at 9:40 a.m., this particular compound where the supreme leader of Iran was present was struck by long-range precision missiles. That is what the NYT is reporting, that 9:40 a.m. local time is the exact time when this strike was carried out, after the Israeli jets took off at about 6 a.m. and took about a 2-hour journey to their ultimate target. Also, what this particular NYT report, Zaka, is saying that the strike killed multiple buildings respectively. So while Israel claimed it achieved complete surprise with this particular strike, they're also saying that this was real-time actionable intelligence passed off to Israel, and Israel carried out this strike with great precision. Also, this reflects the unprecedented, intelligence sharing between both the nations for over a dozen years now, and this particular operation has become a hallmark of that. Also, it raises big question marks on whether there was a big strategic slip-up by the Iranian leadership, because despite clear signals of an impending war, the leadership gathered at a central compound in Tehran and became a sitting duck target for America and Israel.
All right, Aman, we'll leave it at that. I also want to go across to Flor Hassan Nahum, who's an Israeli special envoy for trade and innovation. We'll also be joined by Adrian Fortinellis and Tom Cooper. Sushant Sareen is also joining us. But let me go to the Israeli guest, Flor Hassan Nahum. The big question now, ma'am, is how long does this continue? Of course, what has been happening in Israel over the last 24 hours in response to the killing of the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? There have been multiple air raid sirens, shelters in place, people being asked to go to the bomb shelter at least about a dozen times in the last 24 hours or so. How long is their propensity to continue this war? Iranians are retaliating. We're seeing civilian targets being hit in Dubai, in Doha. How long, how much propensity is there in Israel to continue this beyond what we saw back in June, beyond the 12-day war? Is Israel, is America, is the rest of the region, the Gulf Arab allies of America ready for a long-drawn war?
Well, we hope it isn't a long-drawn war, and I think it's a very good sign. In the first 5 minutes of this war, we managed to get rid of the supreme leader who's caused so much suffering and pain and so many deaths in the region for decades. And so we will have to see if the Iranian military structure can hold. We'll have to see, and we pray that the people of Iran are strong enough to start taking over the government institutions, and perhaps the crown prince can be restored and brought back. It's all very volatile, but all I can tell you is that Israel is taking the hit for saving civilization from the Islamic regime in Iran, which has been the chief exporter of terrorism around the world, and especially in our region. When you talk about people in the Gulf running for their lives, this has been our lives for decades. We left Gaza in 2005 to get rockets from Gaza in the south of Israel. We've had rockets from the north, from Hezbollah, for decades. And then from October 7th, we had an intensity of rockets from both the north and the south, and twice in 24 attacks by Iran. So this is Israel's daily life. And this is because the Islamic Republic of Iran has been let loose and let to do whatever they wanted with the region and the world, and it's about time to bring them down. I don't think that going back to the negotiating table should be the aim here. The only aim that makes sense is regime change in Iran.
How concerned are you that, yes, the top leadership has been eliminated, the IRGC commander has been eliminated, the defense minister has been eliminated, in addition to the supreme leader, but if you were to completely eliminate the entire regime of the Ayatollahs, the Islamic Republic, which has held for the last 40 plus years, how confident are you that that will happen, or is it only going to be that the figurehead at the top has been changed and whoever is number 2 or number 3 then takes over and could perhaps be even more extreme and even more radicalized?
Well, that's always an issue, but look what happened with Hezbollah. Israel took out Hassan Nasrallah, and there has been no real credible leader that has come in his place. Hezbollah has been weakened to the point that they're not even responding. They are Iran's major proxy, and they have not entered this war because Israel has weakened them to the point that they are concerned for their own survival. And so, no, I don't believe that when you get rid of the top, somebody else can come in his place. Yes, it can. But when you've gotten rid of the head of the IRGC, when they've gotten rid of the defense minister, when you've gotten rid of the entire leadership of the IRGC, and at the same time, and this is crucial, you have people, millions of people on the streets of Iran begging and protesting to get their country back. This is the recipe for regime change.
Also, very quickly, the fact that civilian targets are being hit in Dubai, in Doha, in Manama, these are all U.S. allies in the region. How concerned are you that they will now be, right now, having conversations with the Trump administration to try and quickly end this war?
Well, it's absolutely awful that there have been civilian attacks. There shouldn't be civilian attacks anywhere. In Israel, that's been the major focus. Look, I actually think that Iran has made a strategic mistake, because if they wouldn't have hit these other Gulf countries may have stayed out of the war, may have even prevented the United States from using the bases in order to attack the Islamic Republic of Iran. But now what they've done is they've made themselves the victims of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And in my mind, that means that they are now more intent than ever to make sure that there's regime change in Iran.
All right, Fleur Hassan Nahum, thank you very much, Israeli trade envoy. Thank you for joining us here on News 18. I also want to go on to more breaking news that's coming in. It's been an intense, absolutely intense 24 hours in the Gulf region after, of course, Israeli and American joint strikes eliminating the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now, reprisal attacks that are being seen across the wider region. There are reports emerging that 10 plus people have been killed after soldiers opened fire on protesting people at the U.S. consulate in Karachi. Remember, this was an important story that came through just a few hours ago. There were mobs outside the U.S. consulate in Karachi. The police and the army had to open fire, and we're given to understand that at least 10 people have died after soldiers were forced to open fire because a mob was trying to ransack the U.S. embassy, the U.S. consulate building in Karachi. I want to go across to Siddhant with more details on this. Siddhant, so this is going to lead to further skirmishes, not just in Pakistan, as we are seeing outside the U.S. consulate in Karachi, but perhaps in the wider region as well, because the Iranian regime and the Shia connection, there is still some residual support in that region for Ayatollah Khamenei.
Well, that's right, Zaka. In fact, protests have broken out at various places in Pakistan. In fact, it's getting really challenging for the law enforcement authorities to manage these protests. In fact, just a short while back, Zaka, we reported that how protesters barged into the compound of U.S. consulate in Karachi. In fact, stones were pelted at the building. The sloganeering was done by the protesters. Anti-America slogans were raised by the protesters, and now we're getting to know that more than 10 people have been killed. 10 protesters have been killed in open fire outside the U.S. consulate in Karachi. So this is just one incident that we are aware of. We've been told that there are multiple such protests going on in Pakistan
against the United States and also against Pakistan's friendship with the United States.
All right, Siddhant, we'll leave it at that. We're getting more breaking news. The Iranian state media is now reporting at least 148 people have been killed and 95 wounded in Shajareh Taib Girls Primary School in Minab. Most of the victims, they claim, are between the ages of 7 and 12. Sushant Sareen is also there with us. Sushant, I asked this to other guests as well. How do you expect this to play out over the next 3 or 4 days, perhaps the next week? Iran is clearly retaliating with its ballistic missiles, with its Shahid drones, etc. But how long can they continue doing this?
Zaka, it depends on how much stomach they have for continuing to do this, because clearly the skies are dominated by the Israelis and the Americans, and the kind of weaponry both Israel and America have, and the intelligence. Look,